4, 3, 2, 1.
And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the HAGMANN Report for today, Tuesday, November 27th, 2012. I'm Doug Hagmann. I'm the co-host with my son, Joe Hagmann. Together we are the HAGMANN Report. And folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of unbiased and uncensored news and analysis. This is information we all need to talk about. We need to share. We need to uplift one another with information with a biblical-based worldview. Look at what's taking place through the prism of Bible, prophecy, and Scripture. Of course, we broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Our primary platform is Blog Talk Radio. And, folks, you can find us on the Internet at HomelandSecurityUS.com. And we are also simulcast in video on the Christians United Broadcasting Network. We want to thank Troy for all he does. And, folks, we want to thank you, each and every one of you, for your continued belief and trust in us as we talk about what's important today, about current events, for as long as we can talk about this, for as long as we will have the ability to be on the air. And I say that knowing what is potentially coming down the pike with respect to regulations and the snuffing out of dissidents, of political dissidents. That's coming down. But anyway, I just want to say thank you again to each and every one of you for your support, your prayers, and your status as our extended family. We don't take our responsibility lightly, and we certainly don't take our relationships with you lightly. With that, Joe, welcome to tonight's program.
Glad to be here. Listening to you get going is like listening to someone starting an old car and
really?
Warming up to that point to where it gets on the...
You're finding my groove.
It's a little slow, but you're right.
Yeah. Now, you know what, though?
And saying...
Sometimes, I want to break script sometimes. I just want to break script and just say, hey, come on in, let's talk.
Yeah.
Pull up a chair. That type of thing.
You said one thing at the opening, for as long as we're able to do this and allowed to do this, as the oppressive regime, our government, continues to come after the alternative media, and especially Christians. And here in England, or in the UK, is a case of this. A Christian preacher was arrested for saying homosexuality is a sin. I don't know if you saw this.
Yeah, well, didn't we have this happen before?
Yeah, this is this guy. I mean, his case is coming up. This was an older incident that happened.
Right.
It's being brought back to attention. There's a guy that was arrested for. He was arrested for harassment and alarm or distress after a homosexual police community support officer overheard him reciting a number of sins referred to in the Bible, including blasphemy, drunkenness, and same-sex marriage.
Wow.
This happened 2 years ago in the UK, but this is just the key here is what they used to get around and charge this man. They used these laws that they put in place in order for crowd control with football, out-of-control football or soccer games, crowds and riots.
So
it's kind of like the laws we have in place here.
Yeah.
We have the Hate Crime Act. We have the Expatriation Act. We have the Protest Act. We have all these unconstitutional laws that can be used.
They're multi-purpose
objectionally. They can be used, or enforced pretty much on a basis of who they want to crack down on and who they don't. So there is no more freedom of speech. You are shut down at a government official's whim, just yesterday there was, 132 sites shut down for...
Yeah, look, Joe, I saw that.
Here it is. Federal officials shut down 132 websites on Cyber Monday, in Cyber Monday crackdown.
But exactly what was the reason given for them taking out those sites? Was it...
First, allegedly selling counterfeit merchandise in a coordinated crackdown timed to coincide with the holiday shopping season.
And I happened to overhear a conversation yesterday.
This was done by ICE, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
One of the people that it was like a party to the, not a party to the conversation, just overhearing it, and two people were talking that said that they were at a purse party, and as they were talking about this, and people might be familiar with purse parties where they'll bring in knockoffs like of Coach purses, and it's, I don't know, $50 as opposed to a $400 purse. I can't imagine somebody paying $400 or whatever, for these purses, but got caught up into, I guess there was an internet presence for this particular group who was doing this purse party thing. And, there was a crackdown by the FBI. So, yeah, well, go figure. But yeah, look, I can understand that, though. I mean, copyright theft, that's a problem. I mean, just imagine if you were the owner of a product, folks, and even though it's, it's obviously you're overpaying for the name, but hey, it's, if you own the rights and people are buying it, that's a law that you should follow, I believe. But yeah. But,
And we got a good show lined up for tonight.
Yes,
we're going to get into some news, take your phone calls in the first hour. Hour number 2, we're going to be joined with Joe, known as JSnip4 on YouTube, from Realist News.
Yeah, he's a very articulate man.
We're going to get into some economic news when he comes on.
Did you happen to see and folks, I don't know whether you caught this or not earlier today, the news, 2.5 Men.
I have that. Yeah, I have that up right here. I don't know if you saw the extended version of that.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And you know that Chris Hudson was involved in this, and we had Chris Hudson on our program, the Forerunner.
Oh, okay. So, I see it here. I see the picture. So
actually, it's a small world, but the Forerunner was counseling, providing assistance, biblical assistance to Angus, to that young man that plays in 2.5 Men, and so it's very close to us as a program, having contact with the Forerunner, with Chris Hudson, and we just want to commend him on a tremendous job he did.
Absolutely, and I still have his number. I'm going to give him a call.
Yeah, what a great!
We can't have him back on and
how great
talk
is
about
that?
this, because it's especially in a number 1 TV show for so many years as this was, and the Charlie Sheen fiasco made it gave it a lot of publicity. But for him to come out and reveal the Satanism inside Hollywood, the evil inside Hollywood, he's definitely Chris Hudson, known as the Forerunner on YouTube. He has a great YouTube channel.
The Forerunner Chronicles,
exposing the New Age and the Hollywood satanic agenda.
Yeah.
For this kid to come out and say what he did, it's good to see that. It means, there are people out there that are willing to come out and tell the truth and say it like it is without worrying about the backlash from workers, from bosses, or anybody else.
What did you catch his mother saying? She does not want him to be exploited by Christianity.
No, I did not.
Oh man,
I kind of.
I can translate that for you. We don't want, I don't want to lose my cash cow.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, I mean...
Also, tonight, we're going to get into something I'm looking at here, a California flood threat from an atmospheric river. I want to talk about, they're calling this an arc storm. They're saying an atmospheric river is going to be dumping up to 10 to 20 to plus inches of rain on California. So that's something we're going to look into. Also, some good news out of the Pentagon. A human will always decide when a robot kills you. Pentagon's reassurance over fears of machine apocalypse. As the Department of Defense policy directive calls for autonomous weapons to be designed so that they will always need human authorization to open fire.
So
they're doing so on their own.
Okay.
I guess so. That's what they're saying. And also, tonight, the U.S. Treasury, this news is something I wanted to talk to Joe from Realist News about. The U.S. Treasury declines to name China as a currency manipulator. And I want to get into why this is important, because China has been undervaluing their currency.
What does Gerald Celente always say? Currency wars, trade wars, shooting wars, or in that order, perhaps. And folks, if I can solicit your assistance in spreading the article that part one of the Benghazi Explained interview with an intelligence insider. It is it's published right now at both CanadaFreePress.com and HomelandSecurityUS.com. The nice part about Canada Free Press is you can leave a comment on the article, about the article, but certainly what I'd ask you to do, because of the importance of this, because Benghazi is this window into exactly what's taking place, and I'm getting ready for to post part 2 tomorrow, which is it's going to be more detailed and get into a lot more things. It's going to talk about, among other things, the drug involvement, the narcotics involvement, in the false flag potential for Syria, and the chemical weapons from Libya that were shipped from Libya to Central and South America up into Mexico for potential deployment in the United States. So part 2 is going to be really, really important. But in order for part 2 to be successful, part 1 has got to kind of get some traction. So I'm asking everyone, if you could, go to CanadaFreePress.com and HomelandSecurityUS.com and spread that article, because really the mainstream media, we have to decide what to call the old media. How's that? Okay. Should we
for now, till we think about it?
All right. But we really have to compel them, or at least do their job to get the word out as to what's really going on, because the bottom line with this is an attack on our dollar, and it is the potential for millions of people to lose their lives. So I want to get that in there. And before, the other thing too, so I don't forget about this, I want to thank every person that responded to our homework assignment last night. I have gotten numerous emails and received a very interesting contact today from the individual behind that, very well positioned within the government, knowing what's going on, a man who wants to see good prevail over evil and is working toward that. And it kind of turned me on to the subject matter. And he said, you have a fantastic audience. And he mentioned the callers, because he was listening. He mentioned the callers and how quickly the callers, the listeners, picked up on where we were headed with this, and the observations. He said it's just it gave him hope, and really kind of made him smile that, hey, there are people out there. You, the listeners, are cut above way above the average people. And judging by the emails I received, and I have not responded to all of them, but man, you guys are doing very well. And for the folks that perhaps missed last night's show or are not in tune with what we're talking about, very, very quickly before we move on, Hillary Clinton, if you look at her appearance now, and especially how it's changed over the past several months, it's knowing the fact that she travels with a stylist, and knowing the fact that her appearance, I mean, she's not like you and I, folks. I mean, obviously, I mean, she doesn't get her hair cut at the Sharp Cuts or whatever the place is. She's got people that travel with her. Not only her hair, but her physical appearance. And I guess to add from yesterday, think about a witch. Joe, a witch dresses. I don't want to say cartoon witch, but the character witches, they dress, and there's a certain appearance that they take on. But there's a reason behind that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the homework assignment that I kind of gave is to see if people notice things about Hillary Clinton, her appearance, her dress, her hair, her makeup, everything. To notice changes and to see if those changes represent something, could represent something. And look, I don't know the answer to this. It's not like I've got the answer sheet right here. I don't know it, and I think it might be arbitrary or ambiguous, perhaps. But could there be something? Can we say demonic or satanic, Wiccan-like? I don't know. But there's something here that she's conveying something. Could it be a message to people in the know? I don't know. It's kind of like a secret handshake through her appearance, sort of, kind of. But the homework assignment was, can you notice the difference and relate what I was just referring to with perhaps a demonic or a Wiccan-like appearance or something to that effect. And that's kind of like, I didn't even want to give that much information yesterday because I didn't want to pollute the minds of people listening and wanting to do this. But now you kind of see where I'm going with this. But the responses to date have been interesting. We still have to keep looking. I'm still looking for more specificity with respect to this. But you guys are off on a great start, so thank you very much.
Something kind of off topic I wanted to mention here. Do you remember maybe 2010, 2011, Henry Kissinger went on CNBC or one of the financial news stations and said that Jeb Bush would be the next president?
Yeah, I remember that, yes.
Okay, and everybody said, he was going to be the next, and this was before the primaries of this last election, so
right.
That had to be around 2010 or so. Well, there's this article that popped up today from the National Review, exclusive, Jeb Bush meets with former aides near White House. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush met Monday with a group of his former staffers at the J.W. Marriott Hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue, just steps from the White House. Bush, a potential 2016 presidential contender, spent an hour in the hotel's cannon room reminiscing and entertaining questions about his political future. You're laying some groundwork here, we just had an election, no reason to be putting out names of presidential candidates for the 2016 race so early. I just thought it was odd, and when I saw the headline, that's the first thing I thought of was what Henry Kissinger said.
He was wrong, though. Kissinger was incorrect.
Not if he knew Obama was going to be on for a second term. He said the next president would be Jeb Bush after Obama. He didn't say it was going to happen.
I get that. Okay. All right.
So seeing that kind of is something to keep in the back of your mind because it might come up and be important at a later date.
And folks, do you think, can this country last to have another president? What's that?
Another Bush slash Clinton slash.
Yeah.
And
what's kind of funny if you look at, and not funny, but troubling, I suppose. I know that there are differences between Romney and Obama, but if you start dissecting Romney and you start dissecting Obama and look at the paymasters, look at the people behind them, there's a commonality there. So, I'm drawn to the fact, or I'm drawn to that two sides to the same coin. Would it make that much of a difference? If Romney would have come in, would it made that much of a difference? Perhaps it might have slowed things down. We could debate this all day long, but it's interesting with Kissinger, the next president, not necessarily.
He didn't say in 2012.
Right,
he said
right.
The next U.S. president will be Jeb Bush.
Well, again, if we can survive as a country to that point, and I certainly hope we can.
People in the chat room are making good points. You know, we can't forget about Obama's third term.
Yeah, well, exactly. Exactly.
Well, like you said, will we even make it to the next election?
Well, did you know, folks, that there was legislation being bandied about to drop the term limitation requirement? Now, it didn't get anywhere. It was proposed, but that was it. I don't recall who proposed that legislation, but to drop the term limitation requirement. This was earlier. I think it was early this year, or maybe at the end of last year.
Why not? Wow. I mean, they're going to continue to do evil through the with the mask, the U.S. government, or under the mask of the United States flag. Might as well keep the same face in there. What's the difference?
Well, you know, and look, I can go back to Benghazi too.
Maybe another country will save us, like we save other countries, and take out the dictator.
Well, yeah, and that's what this window of you know with Benghazi is it kind of shows what's behind the curtain and some of the machinations and the plans and the people behind the curtain, which is why it's so important. So you know we've got with Benghazi, obviously. You've got this exposure to Obama doing the bidding and sending your sons, your daughters, your wives, your husbands, moms, dads, whatever, uncles, aunts, sisters, and brothers out into doing the military part of the agenda of Saudi Arabia, and that should outrage everyone. And you know, and compare it to what Romney said. We just have to find different bad guys, better bad guys.
Yeah, I'm laughing at it. Comment in the chat room, David, that's pretty funny. It's racist if Obama can't run for a third term. That's so funny. I mean, I can hear, I can see it already, and that's so true. I can already hear Chris Matthews crying about the unfairness of a minority candidate only being allowed to serve 2 terms.
You know what I have to see?
It would be not that far of a stretch. I can see, you know, in 2 years, 3 years, when the subject is going to pop back up again, if we're still a nation, I can really see the possibility of them trying to pull that off, especially with the way they have control of the people's minds through the media now. If he can get reelected to a second term, I mean, they can do anything.
Well, right, and I do want to bring up something, and I'm not sure, folks, if you've heard about this, but I know in our state of Pennsylvania,
they print money out of thin air. Millions of people vote out of thin air. And
oh yeah,
it's amazing.
Dead people. Yeah, but have you heard about this, ladies and gentlemen? There was, and this did not get a lot of play, at least not that I saw. But in Pennsylvania, there was a couple of young people who were looking at the voter machines, the electronic voter machines, the integrity to see if there were any problems, and they were able to convert flip votes using Bluetooth. Their Bluetooth. What are those things? The things you stick in your ear?
Yeah, Bluetooth.
Okay. So they would walk.
Mobile device.
Okay, they were able to simply walk by voting machines in Pennsylvania, as an example. Well, I mean, just give you an example, and flip the vote. So, without respect to Obama or Romney, when that happens, the integrity of your vote is in jeopardy. And what do we have? But
I mean, I see here 98% of black women aged 18 to 29 voted for Obama. 98%.
I'm not even sure how to how to deal with the. To me, it doesn't matter.
That's racist.
Well, I'm the Latinos, and I have to tell you a funny story. Last night, after the show, when I got home, King, the dog, King, my dog. All right. The remote control for our television was on the was actually fell off the couch, and you know how things happen, and landed on the floor. Well, King, which is our 120 plus pound German Shepherd, in his movement around, he laid by the couch, and he actually kind of sat on the remote or did something with the remote, where the television channels were changing. So he's changing the channels without knowing it. And this is true. And it's funny. So I saw this going through, and so I was kind of looking and trying to figure out what was going on. And here the dog was on the remote. Took the remote out of from underneath the dog's paw. And what was funny was it stopped at MSNBC, Rachel Maddow's show. So I watched it for a few minutes, and she was already talking about the curse of the second term of a president. So kind of making excuses why Obama is not going to be successful in the second term. And I thought, wow, I don't know, for whatever reason, I didn't really sit there and watch the entire, or watch much beyond that. But really, I mean, you're actually saying that Obama might fail in the second term? No. Because it's historically true.
Yeah. Some good news for talk radio, I think. I would say. Laura Ingraham is leaving Talk Radio Network. I see the headline here on Drudge.
So why would you say it's good news?
She is one of the worst people to be bringing people news. She is vile. You remember her saying people in Japan should be thankful?
No. Joe, you are confusing Laura Ingraham with Ann Coulter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Laura Ingraham is
I know who Laura Ingraham is now.
They're both blonde.
Not that they're listening, but I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah. No, Laura Ingram's all right.
I know who she is. She's
but they're partisan.
They're partisan. Sean Hannity, a woman.
Yeah,
type.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But was there any reason given for
her? Is the one I was talking about is vile and would be good for her to leave the public eye altogether. But let me see in this article here.
Well, Ann Coulter's abrasive. I mean, she's abrasive, and she's got her own little thing going on. That's her trademark, I suppose. But
being crazy.
But that takes away from the seeking the truth, and then that's, to me, it's difficult to close your mind off and to be that adversarial when you're trying to just seek the truth and to report on the truth. Very sarcastic, very sharp, very acerbic wit. But nonetheless, I'd like to think that everyone that's in this business is doing so for the reasons of disclosing the truth. But we know that that's not what's happening.
Apparently, they say she's leaving her network. Apparently, this might have been the same network Rush Limbaugh was on, or not Rush Limbaugh, Michael Savage.
Okay.
And left.
All right.
It says that she averaged about 575 million listeners a week, and that's
a lot of people.
Magazine. Yeah, and she was on there 9 years, and she was on 325 stations nationally. They say that she'll keep her options flowing. And she's also on Fox News. On Fox News TV. But no, I thought that was Ann Coulter. I just really screwed that up.
No. I mean, it's
I have
easy
things to say about Ann Coulter.
Well, yeah, I'm sure, but I mean, it's an easy mistake to make because there are quite a few that fit the same stereotype as Laura Ingraham and Coulter, and you got, then of course you got Tammy Bruce and others that really take things to the extreme. But wow, okay, well. Wish her well, and God bless. But we all need to the people that are in this venue, the venue we're in, the kind of like the people that really don't make a difference, or don't make Talkers Magazine, I should say, are not counted among the talkers, if you will. We all have to stick together, and we all have to really work toward getting the truth out, and that's. So, but man, there's just so much going on, continually going on.
No, I want to do this, and then if you guys want to call in, we'll take phone calls till the end of the hour at 661-244-9839. That's 661-244-9839.
We're considering getting an unlisted number for that.
Yeah, no, not an unlisted number.
No, just 800 number.
Yes, a toll-free 800 number.
Yes.
This is California flood threat from atmospheric river. All right, meteorologists are using the term atmospheric river to describe a long, narrow plume piping deep moisture from the tropics into the mid-latitudes. One type of an atmospheric river, hereafter AR, you may have heard of the Pineapple Express, a pronounced plume taping moisture from the Hawaiian Islands to the U.S. West Coast. Amazingly, according to NOAA's Earth System Research Laboratory...
That's NOAA, not NOAA, as in the Ark. NOAA is NOAA, National Oceanic Atmosphere.
Yeah, it says a strong AR can transport as water vapor up to 15 times the average flow of liquid water at the mouth of the Mississippi River. Suffice to say, if an AR sails over a particular area, significant flooding can be the result. In fact, a study by Ralph et al. Found ARs responsible for every flood of Northern California's Russian River in a 7-year period. That said, this is also important for Western water supply considerations. I'll post this article in the chat room. It's called "California Flood Threat from Atmospheric River." So,
but wasn't there, Joe? Wasn't there a belief at one point that the waters of the world were in our atmosphere as opposed to being on land? Is some sort of biblical reference to that? I mean, I in pre-biblical times, maybe I dreamt that. I don't know, but I thought I heard that somewhere.
It's being referred to as an ARC event, as somebody pointed out in the chat room. That's something I emailed to my father last night, early in the morning. I
didn't look at it.
I didn't even. Yeah, I'm looking for the email here because I don't know where I saw that referenced at. But this atmospheric river is, they say, could drop up to 10 to 20 inches of rain. You could have a huge storm surge with it. This is going to hit California. And interestingly enough, for whatever it's worth, if you go back to that HAARP status monitoring site and look at the places that is going to be affected, that's the only place that's bright red. So just like we saw with Sandy, that big buildup on the northeast with that site, same thing's happening here. And just something else to look at when taking account into the storm. And if we have any listeners over there,
yeah, we'd like to know what you're thinking about that.
They say Wednesday, tomorrow, would be the start of this storm, or maybe it's already hitting. I'm not sure. Thursday through Sunday, I don't know. But anyway, people on the West Coast and Northern California, just keep this in mind. And if you have family there, find out, what the weather's like, because we would definitely like to know what this whole thing's about, because the atmospheric river is news to me. I've never heard of it. They say it's a special weather event, and that's different from other weather events. It can cause up to 15 times more flooding, or hold 15 times more rain or moisture in the air as it travels over. So
just to make like a mental picture of this, you've got actually
15 times, possibly the downpour of a...
Instead of clouds, just mentally in your mind, think of like a river instead of the clouds.
It's just a tidal wave storm
that would come down in heavy rain fashion. But a lot of times your local weather stations will give you a lot more information, a lot more specific information than the national websites do. I want to cover this as well. Not sure, ladies and gentlemen, especially if you live, and I know Lucy lives in Tennessee, dozens of bomb threats have been received at Tennessee courthouses.
Okay, yeah, there's something going on in Tennessee.
It extends beyond Tennessee, because we've been calling information from other areas as well. Just with respect to this, bomb threats evacuated 26 county courthouses across Tennessee, and that happened today. All right. The Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security confirms it is monitoring the situation and helping with the law enforcement agencies as needed. Now, look, a series of bomb threats, possibly from the same person, caused delays and frustration in the downtown Memphis courthouse Tuesday morning. So, okay, what are we seeing here, and what would cause, or who would cause? Look, one bomb threat is, to me, if you were going to perpetrate something like that, that's a pretty big, hefty deal. But 26 of them, and this also, by the way, happened in Oregon last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago. I think there were maybe upwards of 24 courthouses in Oregon. So what are we looking at here? Is this some sort of a prelude to a false flag, or is this a beta test of something? Is this what is going on with this? It's obviously they're doing this for a reason. So I want everyone to keep their eyes open and keep your ear to the ground on this. I don't, seriously, we don't know. We don't have any inside information on this. Our inside information has been very quiet with respect to that.
All right, let's go to the phones. I don't have my numbers in front of me. We're going to go to area code 719. You're up first. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hello?
Yes, you're up.
Oh, hi. How are you guys
Hello.
this evening?
Very well.
As far as the bomb thing that you just, thanks. The bomb thing you talked about, if you've done it twice like that, it sounds, well, this is just my uneducated opinion, but it looks like a beta test to test response time and see what type of people would come to the response, especially if you're doing it in different areas like that. And you're picking, like, target areas to see how people respond to something. Like, what do they do? How fast do they do it? I don't know.
Well,
kind of silly, but
that's a good theory, and I agree with that. But you're looking
at
at
prank too.
Boy, a prank that would involve 26 counties in one state. That's a pretty massive prank. Although we don't know. Okay, so that the assessment of response time is certainly possible.
I don't know, it's just a thought. The one I wanted to call in is I found something on the internet that I thought was really interesting that people should take a look at, listeners. It was a guy who was a Russian defector, KGB. He defected. And it's Yuri, Y-U-R-I, and his last name I cannot pronounce Russian very well. It's Bezmenob. He did this. It was like, if you look in there, it's like a bunch of them you have to go through. But he did the speech in 1983. And
Right.
He talks about a thing called subversion. And he goes through, it's a long, I couldn't even list everything, demoralization. There's like 4 steps, and each of them have a grouping. And at the end, the very end, which is the worst, which is crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And then invasion. Or in Civil War invasion. Usually it's invasion, he said. And, of course, all the people that help facilitate this process usually get bumped off, and it didn't matter. And he goes through the whole gay agenda, this right, that right, blah, 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 it doesn't matter, he says. Another thing that I found very helpful was something called the Fuel Project. It was a Christian sort of perspective on the New World Order.
Right.
It was very good. It's called the Fuel Project, yeah. And I thought that was really good. And third, Hillary Clinton. I was looking for what you said, the homework assignment, and then I got deviated because I found something I never heard of before. It was called Conversations with America for the Hemispheric Agenda, and it had to do with something like democracy, prosperity, and social inclusion. And it was a bunch of think tank people talking about raising like 56 more middle-income people. They were in other countries, South American countries. And these are big think tank people. So I found that. I thought that was interesting. I'm like, wait a minute. Their economy's going up while ours is sinking. And the other thing, I went back and looked at a bunch of speeches, like from the Democratic Convention, Hillary speeches. They all seem to talk about helping the middle class. You should hear them. They go on and on about helping the middle class and drone on, yet their outcome, or what I'm actually seeing in our society, is quite the opposite of what they're saying. So either Hillary seems to be out there to help for everybody's rights, women's rights, gay rights, human rights, everybody's rights, but not the right of unborn children. Not the right of food, how our food's labeled, whether we should have GMO, non-GMO food, which is totally against. The idea of messing with God's perfect creation seems just bizarre. That's sort of
right.
Sci-fi. So there's sort of this really weird mixed thing. One minute you're told the environment is priority, yet and they're cutting down coal power plants. And of course, I live in Colorado, so that's where we get most of our energy from.
Oh, yeah.
And yet on the other end, they're doing quite the opposite in other places, opening up more oil drilling in South America. So do we really have a climate problem, or are they just telling us we have a climate problem so they can do what they want, whoever they are? And that's about it.
Wow. Well, let me just say this first, if you don't mind. Keep going on the Hillary Clinton aspect. I'm very curious, and in the back of your mind, just kind of keep appearance and.
Oh yes, I did find something. Wait, she issued a press release. Where is that? And I know I'm a great note taker. Sometimes, no, not actually. I'm not. I'm all over the place today for some reason. Oh yes, that must have became some sort of a topic. And around May 2012, there was an ABC News release. Clinton Unfiltered is how they put it, kind of tagged it
right.
for the, they have to do these, it's not news anymore, it's sort of entertainment. No makeup, hair pulled back, glasses. And then they issued something saying she doesn't care what people think anymore. So that's what she's claiming, because somebody must have brought it up. She's going for the all-natural look now.
Well, I suppose in the context of the quote homework assignment, I'm looking. Could her appearance in some way, shape, or form be sending messages? And like I said, people might think, man, this guy is absolutely out of his tree, but it could be because of the prim and proper. And somebody had sent me in response to that today. Historical overview of her appearance, like for the last 20-some years. But what's going on right now is something totally, in my view, totally different. It's not an abandonment of her appearance. It's actually a reshaping of her appearance for a particular purpose. This is what I'm seeing, and I want to build on that. So, but what you said, about not caring anymore, that could be a cover for what's actually going on. But fair enough. I mean. And you mentioned something else about the carbon and the environment. After Russia, after the Soviet Union fell, you remember Mikhail Gorbachev, right? I mean, everyone remembers him. Perestroika, Glasnost. He was okay. Where's he at now, folks? Do we know? Well,
no.
It's people says like, well, where'd he go? Well, I believe, well, no, I shouldn't say I believe. Right now, he is actually involved in the carbon credit climate movement out of Southern California. Isn't that interesting? So it's just something to think about because, again, here's a guy, big-time Soviet Union, who's actually moved to the United States and advancing this agenda into the Earth changes and kind of teaming up, if not directly, but in ideological aspects with Al Gore. So, and there's money to be made there.
Oh, yeah. From what I can gather, there's been a lot of money made. Wasn't it Al Gore who had money invested in the smart meters? I used to know the exact number he had invested in that company that made the smart meters that we all had to get in our little electric boxes or whatever.
You know what? I'm not sure.
Check it out. I think he did. I think it was something like $75,000. That kind of rings a bell. Okay. I don't know where the notes are for that. I wasn't expecting to talk about that, or I would have gotten those notes out.
Well, no, that's good because we have to keep track of these people, and I mean, I think it's important to find out. It's one thing to hear things that are going on in the news, but it's another thing to find out, like, okay, where are these players, these former leaders, and what are they doing today, and keep track of these people.
Yeah, they're all involved in the
government. Well, that kind of fits in with this. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't mean to do that. It fits in with that Yuri. I can't pronounce his name, and I'm not going to try because I'll mess it up. that his subversion and demoralization and taking over a country without firing a shot sort of thing is they implant themselves like the teachers. It's all this liberal thinking, get people fighting with each other. First, and then, like I said, I think I mentioned it last night, they took God out of the schools in 1963, and then there's a whole progression of how bad the country got after that. I can get those numbers for tomorrow. It would be hard to bring them up right now. What's happened since but there's a whole list of things and, like, schematics, and how I think it was like a 75% drop on our ADP scores across America. But this whole progression of things. I just don't have those numbers in front of me right now.
Right, and this that actually the first of all, the video that you're referring to is available on YouTube, and we had it on our site for a while. Right. And,
good. Yeah,
okay.
It is very educational.
Actually, when we were kicked off of GoDaddy and went to the new server, we lost a lot of videos and or new ISP. We lost a lot of videos, but that video we had on for the longest time on our website. But those are the communist goals from 1958 that were read into the congressional record in 1963. And I just want to bring this up. The goals that were outlined, and you're correct in what you said about many of them being fulfilled. But there's a book that was written, and let me just double check here. I want to make sure I've got the name right. There was a book written that everyone really should read. As I'm looking through my notes here, I believe it's The Naked Communist is the name of the book that outlines, and this is a book that was written back in the 50s, I suspect, but it outlines the entire agenda of the communist movement inside America. And so, yes, it's a very popular YouTube. Thank you for bringing that up.
I just think it educates people, because then when you kind of watch what he's saying, think about, I'm watching him, and he's like 1983, and, what were you doing in 1983 kind of moment. And then you kind of look around. It's sort of like it kind of helps take some of the scales off people's eyes. Because one of the things I thought was interesting is when he ends, at the very end of the lesson, if you're using the chalkboard one, when he ends his speech, he says, well, what you need to do is you need to get back to God. And I just thought, wow, that was really, you're watching this, and he ends it with that. It's like, yeah. And you think about how we...
Yeah. That's great.
We got to this point where it's really sad. And I'm talking to people that go, they go to the store, people are just rude. Everybody's like pushy, and it's really... Yeah. There's definitely, I'm a Christian, so I look at things from a, biblical Christian point of view. But the people around are just really uptight.
Absolutely.
It's strange,
Yeah.
And there's my grandmother used to know her next door neighbor, and they used to know their next door neighbor. Now, if you talk to your neighbor, they go, what do you, it's almost like, what do you want? Kind of look. And it's sad. It's really sad.
It is sad, and that's the way our society is moving forward. That's what they're calling progress. But thank you for your call.
Yeah, God bless you.
Anything
else?
You're welcome.
No.
All right. Well, we'll
check in with you guys tomorrow.
Okay, we'll cut you loose and keep working on that.
God bless you guys.
All right, man. Thanks so much. But you know what, Joe, the delay that we've got in the callers is really kind of mind-bending, when we try to sound coherent.
Yeah.
And we apologize for that. But there's nothing we can do.
Yesterday we played this audio for you. We're going to do it again. This is Jamie Foxx.
Yeah. It's necessary.
First of all, giving honor to God and our Lord and Savior, Barack Obama.
You have Jamie Foxx calling our Lord and Savior as Barack Obama, as many Americans seem to share his mindset. we should take a lesson from Uganda's president. Uganda's president publicly has repented. A report in Uganda's leading daily newspaper, New Vision, states that the National Jubilee prayers in Nambali, President Yoweri Museveni made history when he openly repented of his sins and the sins of Uganda. He says, "We want to dedicate this nation to you so that you will be our God and guide. We want Uganda to be known as a nation that fears God and as a nation whose foundations are firmly rooted in righteousness and justice to fulfill what the Bible says in Psalms 33:12. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, a people you have chosen as your own, and I hereby covenant Uganda to you, to walk in your ways and experience all your blessings forever." That was the president of Uganda in a very, I would say, very, very rare speech, seeing a leader of a country repent to the one true God.
Yep. It's interesting
something to look to for.
So we're going to Africa, a dark country in Africa, essentially. Don't forget you did say Uganda, right?
Uganda.
Yeah.
Yep.
So don't forget the reign of Idi Amin there, and what that country was. And now look at that. Repentance is the key. Repentance by our government leaders. That's the key.
And then we have, the people in Hollywood here and the different entertainment industries praising Obama as Lord and Savior, while we have somebody in Africa, a president in Africa, who knows who the real Lord and Savior is and is not afraid to hand his nation over to it. Probably the smartest thing the man has ever done in his life, and anybody could do in a position of power, is give that authority and power to the Lord.
Exactly.
That's a true man of God in my eyes.
You mentioned yesterday, we talked about this on our show yesterday, Joe, about Brzezinski saying, "Boy, the New World, or the something to the effect of the New World Order is being troubled or kind of running into problems because of the resistance by the people, by the knowledge of people that are gaining knowledge about what their plans are."
Yeah, well, thousands of drones to monitor you. I don't know if you saw this today. Federal aviation admission has been flooded with applications from police departments, universities, private corporations, news agencies, all seeking to use drones that range from devices the size of a hummingbird to full-scale aircraft like the M9 Predator drone. This is because the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration Modernization and Reformation Act, signed into law February 14th, that requires the FAA to fully integrate drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, into the national airspace by September 2015.
Right, so
up to 30,000 drones.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're continuing to expand with these police-state takeover tactics and weaponry that they have, the military-industrial complex, the New World Order, satanic, endless resources, funds, weapons, and they are using it all against the American people. At the same time, we have a guy saying, this resistance is really going to... Is this resistance going to stop those 30,000 drones from being deployed? Is this resistance going to stop the TSA from going onto the highways? Well, that's not the direction it's heading.
No, it's not. But once again, we have to take up the task of and everyone listening. Like I always say, if you're investing the time to listen to this program, and we understand. Believe me, I totally understand. You could be listening to a number of other programs, doing a number of other things, but you come to this program for information. You come to it for a number of reasons, and we have to deliver. So part of that, though, is A, providing information, and B, providing even to some extent some methodology. But we need to accept our role as leaders in our zone of influence.
Well, yeah. First of all, we need to get to know the Lord and get to know the Bible for ourselves.
Of course.
We need to know it inside and out for ourselves.
But we could for every story, and I'm not trying to be antagonistic with this statement, but for everything that we say, we could have that disclaimer, and perhaps we should. But what I'm saying to you is, I mean, that should be the basis for everything. Okay, that should go without saying. Often it does, perhaps to our peril. But yes, you're correct.
And I'm saying that for us included, obviously.
Well, yeah, of course. But we have to get together too, and if there are cracks in that armor, in that New World Order armor, or that agenda, let's exploit that. Let's if we see cracks, let's go forward together. You know, I shouldn't even said go forward. That's too much like Obama. But let's proceed to do what we can to expose, educate others, and attack. When I say attack, I'm talking about the attack with information and with even to the extent of some civil disobedience where warranted, to break down the will, just like they're trying to break down our will collectively. We have to break down their will and know that we are not going to be trifled with as a people. And I think the majority of these people they'll run. You know, like they're like typical bullies. You know, schoolyard bullies. You stand up to one, and pretty soon they're going to be gone. They're going to be gone. They won't be, you know, in your face that much anymore.
I wish it was only that easy.
Well, I'm simplifying it, certainly, but that's just the basic overall concept.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw this today. Reporter threatened with arrest for filming the TSA. The agent said, "You can film all you want, but I can still lock you up." This was a gentleman named David Ortiz, was threatened with arrest in New York after filming TSA screeners at an airport checkpoint last week. Even though he was not at the going through the checkpoint, a TSA screener came over to him when he was standing away from the checkpoint to tell him that he was interfering with the checkpoint because he was distracting the TSA officer.
And that's a problem that we will be running into, that people that do this will run into, because at some level, all right, even if you are on public property filming an open air event or something that is open to the visually accessible, and this is what we've seen with police officers. Their claim is you're interfering through distraction.
Yeah.
Okay, and that
you're obstructing by recording a agent. You know.
Right.
I mean, this is a tactic used by the police now being used by the TSA, even though they say they have open film and photograph policies.
Exactly.
They are, you know, saying one thing and doing another.
But I go back to my earlier statement. We have to keep hitting and hitting and hitting that, and I think it would be a lot different if there were. You know, more than one person doing that, where there would be a group of people that would not be as easily intimidated. Think Hurricane Katrina. You got one person in the house, and you got 6 police officers with that one person taking away a weapon. Pretty intimidating when you're on the other side of that door. What if the numbers were a little bit different? What if there are 12 people in the house and 4 cops came to your door to get your gun? I dare say the situation would be a little bit different at that point. So there are powers. There is power in numbers, and that's why unity and collective, you know, unity of purpose is so important, at least in my view. And this is how we're going to win this battle. It's a battle of wills. It's certainly a battle of good versus evil. It's a spiritual battle, but it's also a battle that is practical as well. So we have to employ the Sun Tzu art of war, or at least understand their playbook, so we can adjust our playbook to stack the odds in our favor. And part of that is through numbers, because I mean it's a numbers game right now. There's more of us than there are of them, folks.
We're up against the break. We're going to be coming back with JSnipped4. It's his YouTube channel, Joe from Realist News, on the other side. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Tuesday, November 27, 2012. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your #1 priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies that work right there in your neighborhood: KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the HAGMANN and HAGMANN Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Hold on to your seat. The HAGMANN and HAGMANN flight is now taking off. Doug and Joe Hagmann have cleared the runway of TSA agents, jihadists, political crackpots, and global elitists. Now get ready for some real news. Here they are, Doug and Joe Hagmann.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of this Tuesday edition of the HAGMANN and HAGMANN Report, heard live Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. to 11 Central Time, or Eastern Standard Time. Sorry about that. We are joined by a very special guest this hour. JSnip4 is his YouTube channel. I will post a link to that in the chat room. Joe from Realist News, a previous guest we've had on before. Joe, are you with us?
I am with you.
Glad to have you back on the show.
Yeah, welcome to the HAGMANN and HAGMANN Report. It's great, as always. We follow your we follow what you do, and I got to say you're very articulate. You make some great points, and we're anxious to hear what you've got to say tonight about a number of issues.
Yeah, glad I'm back on the show anytime.
All right. First things I wanted to get into. This is a story we didn't really have too much coverage on, but I saw you did some videos on this, and you had a really good analysis of the $43 trillion scandal involving the CNBC executive.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you, and you made a really good video putting in the analogy together, the the hypnosis show you watched or you saw on the Discovery or Science Channel, and how people can be really hypnotized into doing things that they wouldn't remember doing otherwise. And you compared that to the situation with the nanny. Folks, if you remember, there was a story about the nanny allegedly killing 2 children and then slicing her own throat, and that was the nanny and the children were belonging to a CNBC executive who aired a story about a $43 trillion scandal.
Lawsuit, yeah. And I've got to say this, as you explain this, because I really am anxious to hear how you lay this out. Being an investigator by profession and having worked, my share of suspicious deaths and death-ruled homicides and suicides and such, and so I'm really anxious and really at the ready to hear what you think happened, why you think it happened, and how you think it happened. So, if that's all right with you.
Yeah. Well, I just what I do every day is, of course, I'm looking for news, worth reporting on, doing YouTube videos, posting on my website, things like that. And we hear about this, this lawsuit filed by, I think it's called the Spire Law Group or law firm out of New York. It's a $43 trillion lawsuit. Nothing of that, even close to that size, has ever been done before. And it is a straight up lawsuit against the bankster class, including the politicians at the top who are their minions. It names names, it names the banks, it names the who's who list, basically what I always refer to as the club when I do my YouTube videos. It names all of them in this massive suit to defraud the entire population of America. And, again, it names all these people's names. So I see this $43 trillion lawsuit filed. It's in court. The court's accepted it. Everything's good. I see this, and I said, oh, my God. So I go ahead and do a video on YouTube, which is still there today. And I said, this is pretty incredible to see this. I said, now, if this is just some law group, deciding, hey, we're going to sue for the fun of it, just to, to make a scene or something, then obviously it's not going to go too far. The fact that it was already put into court, and I read through the lawsuit, it looked pretty legit. So I did it. I went ahead and did the video, and I said, look, guys, anyone listening to my video, if you hear anybody in any way, shape, or form tied to this lawsuit, then you have got to let me know in case I don't catch it, and I'll report on it. Because if that's the case, and we have anybody who is found suicided, died of heart attack, just out of nowhere, and they're tied to this case in any way, then you know automatically that this has some kind of merit or warrants further investigation from the rest of us, and that this lawsuit definitely has meaning. Because they're not going to kill somebody tied to the case if this lawsuit is nonsense. So, lo and behold, we hear within, I swear, I think it was a day later, the story, as you mentioned, these 2 young kids murdered by this nanny. I heard the case on the news story, but I didn't realize at the time it was the CNBC's children. And how it ties into that is I read the same lawsuit that was filed, that $43 trillion lawsuit. Out of all the mainstream media sites, not one of them dare even mention that case, especially word for word. But CNBC actually copied the main gist of the case and word for word posted it on their website. And when they posted it word for word, the words they actually used in the lawsuit, rather than banker, they are, in quotes, calling them banksters in the lawsuit. So it's actually, public record, and that's what they called it. So CNBC, an elitist news agency that's ran by these same elitists, went ahead and ran that story on their website, word for word. I then did a video talking about that, saying, man, I haven't seen anybody else. Matter of fact, it may have been the same video. And I said, I haven't seen any mainstream media talk about this. This is just crazy. I can't believe CNBC is doing this. So then I went ahead and mentioned to everybody, if you see anyone die or, suicided, anything, let me know, because if it's tied to this, there's going to be something here. So then again, the next day later, we hear about these kids dying, these 2 kids. And at the time, I didn't know they were attached to the CNBC's vice president. And then I found out that they were. And said, oh, my God, there it is. There it is. So CNBC posted a story. I linked to the story in my YouTube video. to the CNBC site, and as a matter of fact, it is still there today, except when you click on the link, the entire story is gone and changed. The link is still valid. It doesn't say anything wrong with it. It comes up, no problem. But every piece of content that was on that page is gone. And it has now been changed to some basic story about J.P. Morgan having to pay a fine or something because the Security and Exchange Commission is going to fine them for, improper such and such, which is pretty much happening every month. It's nothing new. It's not like some breaking news. And the whole thing was gone. So
all right.
They said that the nanny, did this. So the police questioned the nanny, the mother, because the mother came home and the lights weren't off. So she said she went back down the elevator, asked the front guy at the desk, did anyone come or go from the house today? Or is no one home? He says, no, I haven't seen them leave at all. So she said, oh, well, that's strange. The lights are off. So she goes back upside, goes in the house or the apartment, looks around, turns the lights on, goes to the bathroom. Her 2 children, young children, are dead, bleeding to death. And this is the official first version of the story, by the way, the first thing that came out.
Right.
The 2 kids are dead, and the nanny was already dead next to them. So she calls the police, etc. They come investigate. That's the story. All the mainstream media has been reporting this, just as I described it to you. Another day goes by, and I think it was Saturday at that point. Now all of a sudden the story's changed completely. The nanny is not dead. She's alive. And the wife, or the mother who walked in to see this, has now said, no, according to the police statements. Now, she's not been quoted, but the police statement says, we have new information on the case, and here's a little press release. We are now learning that the nanny was not dead yet when the mother walked in, and that as soon as she went in the bathroom and saw the 2 kids dead, then the nanny went ahead and started finishing herself off. And, of course, did not die in trying to do so, and she's now in a hospital. And by the way, heavily sedated. So I read that and said, okay, now the police have changed the story. You're not going to tell me that a mother is going to come in and see that shock, that complete shock of her 2 children murdered and get the first thing she saw wrong. That's going to be embedded in her head and anybody's head who saw that in person. The rest of your life, you are not going to accidentally say, well, she was dead and lying dead on the floor, and that just somehow changes the day later to, oh, she was alive and well, actually, and then killed herself when I came in. And, of course, didn't kill herself. So all this happened. So, again, I do another video on this and mention this and say that, this is pretty conspiratorial at this point. I usually try to stay away from that. You can tarnish your reputation if you go down that rabbit hole, even if it's true, if there's not a lot of evidence. So all of this is pretty circumstantial, but at the same time, statistically, you cannot have circumstantial, all tied together perfectly in a nice little bundle. And the CNBC website changes immediately after the kids are murdered. The executive vice president, whatever his title was. And why did they remove the story? If everything was fine, why did they remove the story? What was that about, right? So I'm seeing all this, etc. So then we fast forward. I was kind of done with that. And I said, man, if they're doing that stuff, I'm just going to leave that topic alone for now, and that was it. And then all of a sudden, here comes across our news this Hurricane Sandy.
Right.
And Hurricane Sandy is named after a hurricane simulation named Sandy that we did in 1997 of the exact same thing that actually happened right here, earlier this month or whatever, when Hurricane Sandy hit.
Yeah, exactly.
So I see this and say, coincidence, huh? Okay. So then I researched, where did they come up with Sandy in 1997 as a simulation? Well, they got that from a well-known story of one of the survivors, this young girl named Sandy, in 1938, where the same type of thing happened. So we've gone through hurricane after hurricane after hurricane since 1938, and not one of them has ever spun off to the left like that after it was already seen going to the right, like a curveball to the right, except for that one time in 1938. So here we are, basically around 70 years later, perfect timing for another one to come in, only if it's going to do damage to Wall Street and cover up something in Wall Street. If nothing in Wall Street gets covered up by this storm, then by chance, you know what, maybe it was by chance. Maybe this damn storm just happened to come out there and 7 years later do the same thing. So it's odd that we already know this is on the record of destroying, as far as flooding areas like New York City, where the stock market is, et cetera, where all these groups are of great importance as far as the markets are concerned, and that they didn't learn from this. We had a simulation in 1997 that showed this happening again, and what would they do to fix things? Make sure that we're not down for too long and things don't get destroyed. And then nice simulation again after a girl named Sandy from the original storm in 1938. Simulation in 1997 named Sandy, Hurricane Sandy. 2012 comes around, Hurricane Sandy does the same thing the simulation did, which the simulation was a simulation of 1938. I mean, this is incredible. All a string of coincidences, by the way. That's what it is at this point. So if you want to buy the coincidence thing, that's fine, because that's what it points to at this point. Just a big, giant thing of coincidence.
Well, yeah, let me stop you right there for a second, just so people in our listening audience kind of catches up a little bit. On October 25th of this year, the Spire Law Group, on behalf of just a whole bunch of homeowners across the country in New York State, as well as other taxpayers, what they did was they filed an action in federal court in Brooklyn, New York, seeking to halt, number one, to stop foreclosures nationwide, and they're demanding a return of $43 trillion and as you aptly pointed out, by the banksters.
Yeah, and they do name names.
You were right, exactly, and it's a 900-page lawsuit that was filed on October 25th. Okay, now that did catch my attention, but what also caught my attention on right about that time, because I was getting emails about this lawsuit, and I thought, okay. What caught my attention was the use of the word banksters, and I thought, it's a little bit strange. And I was looking at the Spire law firm and trying to figure out where things fit in. And I would see, I saw a couple of people saying, "Hey, my name's on there, but I didn't do anything. I mean, I didn't initiate any action." So I too left that story alone. Okay. But then you're correct. As time went on, the thing with the wife of Kevin Krim, senior VP for digital communications, who's in charge of CNBC Online Content, which is the company that reported this lawsuit. Yeah, they find 2 of her 3 children murdered in the bathroom, and folks, you can search this for yourself, along with the nanny who was unconscious, with a slash wound to her throat, by the way, and I thought that was really odd.
Yeah, and I saw the story separate from the CNBC aspect of it.
Well, I did too.
Seeing the change of the stories where the wife can go from saying she saw all 3 dead to saying she saw the nanny slice her own throat.
Yeah, and so, sir, you're correct in pointing out, and what really got me, from an investigative point of view, is the morphing of the facts, the timing, the coincidence. Yeah, that's a pretty hard thing. Circumstantial evidence to me. I mean, think of O.J. Simpson trial. The civil trial. He was found guilty in a civil trial based solely on circumstantial evidence. Yep. So so to even say that this would be conspiratorial, and as soon as you do, by the way, people just think you're a Looney Tune, and that's why several well-known forums will not publish anything I write, because I'm a Looney Tune. Okay. But do, sir, go on, because you're making perfect sense. Now you're starting to draw, or you're drawing some random things together, and you're making sense. This is good. Go ahead and continue. I just want to catch people up to speed.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, I'm connecting dots, and if the dots are all 100% circumstantial, you can take that as a whole and say, well, if it was just 1 or 2 things, or maybe even 3 things, which is already absurd, but let's just say, then, okay, it was all circumstantial, and what are the odds? Get a statistician in here to figure out the odds. And you'll find that they're probably mind-blowing at that point. Then you add in the additional things that have happened since then, which I've got a little bonus here today, actually. But before I get to that, I want to, I'll finish what I was, basically what I was saying. And that was, we're going to fast forward to where we were, and the kids are found dead, and they change the story and all that. So then it kind of dies down, and then all of a sudden, I see something interesting happen. A few days later, again after Hurricane Sandy hits, there is a company made up of Wall Street banker types, it's a self-regulated type of company again, of course, by the Wall Street group or elite or banksters, etc.
Right.
It is called the DTCC, the Depository Trust, and it has a fictitious subsidiary name called Seed & Co., CEDE & Co. And when you or anybody goes out and buys a stock or whatever it is, any kind of investment on paper that you can think of, put it that way, your broker, or if you do it through a 401k, through your work, they have a broker, etc. There is a broker somewhere that is going to buy that stock or that share or that bond or whatever it is, and it is recorded with that DTCC group with their subsidiary. It is put in the subsidiary's name. So it is put in the Seed & Co. name as the owner of it. You are only the beneficiary of it. So it is odd that if you go and buy a stock without explicitly telling them that you want it in your name, they will not do it, and they automatically, by default, put it in the Seed & Co. name, which is, again, the DTCC subsidiary fake name, and there's some law or something that was created long ago which mandates that it can't be in their real name. It has to be a fake name, which is odd, but nonetheless, that fake name is the actual owner of your stocks, bonds, anything on Wall Street. So all of that information, again, when those things get mailed out as to who owns what and all that, it is stored at the DTCC building on 55 Water Street in New York. Funny name for a street, by the way, considering Hurricane Sandy flooded that. And what do we find out happened during the storm or the hurricane is that this building where the vault is that contains 36-point-something trillion worth of these certificates and stocks and everything on paper, the who's list, was completely flooded by Hurricane Sandy. Again, add another piece of massive circumstantial evidence, an act of God through Hurricane Sandy over there. So God above, the loving Almighty God, Jesus Christ's Father, sent down Hurricane Sandy to help the bankers. I mean, that's what happened. Does that sound like something an act of God would give this bonus to the banker crowd? No way. Therefore, if you want to say that storm was steered or created or whatever, fine. I'm not going to deny it because somehow that storm happened at the most, if it was a complete accident and an act of God, it was the most unbelievably, statistically impossible coincidence chance you've ever seen on the face of the earth. Nothing even comes close to this as far as coincidences of all this tied together. So having said that, they were already reporting before they even came back to the building to verify what kind of damage had happened because they weren't even letting people down in the streets yet. They had already had a press release all over the news. The Seed & Company building, the DTCC building was flooded, and there is, quote, significant damage to those documents in the basement/vault. They were already reporting that there was damage, significant damage, it said, not just damage, it used the word significant damage, to contents in the vault, and the extent of that will not be known until we get a full, clear look at it. So who are they, or anyone, to report that prematurely without even going in the building yet, number one.
Right.
So there's the false flag that took place, by the way. And second, the bonus today that I'm going to give you is another on top of that, because I think maybe when they went down there and they allowed it to get flooded out, they probably saw these documents and said, you know what, they're all flooded and wrinkled, but damn it, we can still read everything in here. This isn't good enough. The damn flood didn't do it. So guess what? Here's a new story today. A fire, I'm not making this up, this is real. A fire at a financial district high-rise office tower, rendered powerless by Hurricane Sandy, has left some 27 injured, the New York Times reported. The fire erupted at 9:30 a.m. this past Saturday in a basement of 55 Water Street, home of Standard & Poor's credit rating agency, Insure Emblem Health, the New York City New York City Department of Transportation, and, quote, other offices, according to the New York Post. Well, guess what? Since the New York Times and the New York Post can't do their job, let me tell you what other offices they meant. The Seed & Co. fake name and the DTCC is also at 55 Water Street. And guess where the fire was? Let's take a look. since it was a high-rise building and all, and the only use of the sub-basement floor / vault area is strictly for the DTCC's use, let's just by chance see of all the stories that this building is, which one happened to get the fire? Let me just take a guess. Let me continue reading. The 53-story tower was one of many office buildings in Lower Manhattan left without power following Hurricane Sandy. And although the fire was caused by an electrical problem, the building's temporary generators were not to blame. The New York Fire Department said in a statement, quote, "The fire at 55 Water Street was caused by a short in a feeder cable, which was re-energized this morning as part of repair work to electrical cables damaged during the storm," Frank Dwyer, a fire department spokesperson, said. Approximately 27 workers and a fireman were treated for smoke inhalation after nearly 80 firefighters arrived at the scene. So this fire, by the way, happened, as it said, well, actually, I don't know if it said it in this particular one. I only copied part of the article, by the way, but it was in the basement, you know, the place where all these records were stored. So I want to remind people, I may have mentioned this on your show prior, I don't recall, but a good, you all may be familiar with, I know you two guys are familiar with J.P. Morgan being caught red-handed by the whistleblower Andrew Maguire and him showing the CFTC people, regulators, that he knew exactly 2 times in a row, dates and times specifically, that they would short the silver market and cause the prices to crash and dump a bunch of paper on the market. So he blew the whistle, and it was against J.P. Morgan, saying it, that's who did it. And the CTFC now had to investigate and can't no longer say, hey, we don't see anything. So what happens within just literally a couple, 2 or 3 weeks later, I catch these little minuscule stories off to the side, no mainstream coverage, didn't hear anyone else talking about this. I just kind of caught it by chance. And one of the stories was small office fire in J.P. Morgan building such and such. I forgot where, I think it was in Texas or somewhere. That's all it said. No further response. Another week later or so, small office fire takes place in CFTC building, such and such. Again, didn't claim anything, didn't claim there was investigative material in there, and didn't claim that, of course, it was tied to J.P. Morgan. Obviously, in my view, we already know what those were. Those were not office fires. Those were getting rid of documents, and they needed to get rid of them, but both the CFTC, because they now had damning evidence, and if they needed copies of that damning evidence, they would just say, hey, J.P. Morgan, can you send us those copies again, or the originals again? Now J.P. Morgan's going to say, well, sorry, we had an office fire, they're gone. And the CFTC is going to say, well, gosh, we also had an office fire a couple weeks later, and all that's gone. Now, they have not said anything, and I can tell you probably why, because it's still under investigation over 2.5, 3 years later now. And whatever comes of this, again, I said it before, I can't wait to see when the CFTC says, well, we had evidence, we were looking at stuff, and it's gone. And everyone's going to say, what do you mean it's gone? We had an office fire. That's what that's going to lead to. If that even comes out, that's what it's going to lead to. So there's an office fire. We had flooding of the basement of the most important, literally the most important Wall Street company on the face of the earth, to the tune of $36 trillion worth of stocks, bonds, certificates, the who's who list, basically the chain of title, if you will. They don't call it that. I think it's the chain of custody or something like that they call it. And they said, well, not to worry. We've got this all on computer backups. So I was sent someone sent me some information on that and said, hey, I did a video on this a while ago. Check this out. So I did it, read it, watched it, and he took me to some sites where I read some stuff, which was very interesting. And I see that the DTCC again wanted back in July to get rid of the paper trail. And they said this is going to be almost impossible when the regulators are not going to allow us to do this. But we want to go all digital and get rid of all the paper trail, keep it in our hard drives. And they even had a little statement on their website, which I found, leading to this article, that said it's going to be an uphill battle for us, but we think it needs to be done, and it's easier, and, you know, the paper stuff, we just need to get rid of that. And lo and behold, again, July of this year, 5 months later, whatever, we have Hurricane Sandy take place, doing the favor that they said was impossible back in July. So now it's guaranteed because the paper is destroyed. And it didn't appear to be destroyed enough through the flooding, so now there was a fire in the basement. Again, this is such a massive cover-up, and the thing is, I don't know how this is going to end or what. I don't know if this was strictly because they filed the lawsuit that Spire Law Group, and they realized that if the Spire Law Group starts subpoenaing and going through the process of court proceedings, the discovery process and all that, that they're going to request and legally be allowed to certain bonds, securities, all kinds of stuff that would be stored at that building to support their case. Now they're not going to be able to do that, and at best, the DTCC will say, well, hey, we don't have the paper you requested, but we do have digital copies. We do have it in digital format, which, of course, digital means rigged, obviously. You can put anything in digital form. So you can change anything. You can do whatever you want and say, well, this is the best we have. This is a copy of a copy, so here you go. So, again, I don't know where this is going. I don't know if this was for the lawsuit or other purposes. They all happened around the same time, so it appears to be probably tied to that lawsuit. And, again, if you can't subpoena documents and get those things to help your court case, you're pretty much going up the creek, without a paddle. So I wish the Spire Law Group a lot of luck on that, and who knows where this is going to end. But I'm just always going to remember that all these little coincidences, the thing with J.P. Morgan a few years ago, again, with all that, and the day's going to come when I know this comes out, and that's what's going to happen. So that's where we're at today.
And I've got to tell you this: you did your homework very well, and you isolated certain things that really, to me, raises some questions. And however Looney Tunes people might think that this whole thing is, it's hard to dismiss the number of coincidences and the effects that various acts like fires and floods had.
And buildings collapsing from dust.
Yeah.
If you were to simply put that in a computer program, in other words, a computer doesn't have emotions, right? And I do database programming as part of my job in IT. So I program this thing to do if-then statements. If this, then do this. If this, then do this. It's plain and simple. The computer doesn't care if I'm sad one day. If Silver got smashed last night and I'm not feeling well at work, I'm a little sad. The computer is going to do the same thing. It's going to run the if-then statements, the logic, over and over again. So it doesn't have emotions. It doesn't care. It doesn't think about what it would think about something. It just does what the coding tells it. Therefore, what I'm getting at with this is that if all of these coincidences we just talked about, all of that, the whole thing on the Hurricane Sandy, all of it, and we're to put that in a computer program and basically, if then, and again, give it room for circumstantial and say all of this is circumstantial, but if then, all the way down, you are going to see the computer resounding 100%, this is a false flag, or this was an event, this happened, this is real. It's not going to say it's kind of real. It would automatically, because again, there's no emotions, there's no thought about, well, people can't do this, people aren't that evil, and I'm not evil, so I don't think of someone else, and I'm an American, so the people they're saying did this are American. There's no way that's American, because Americans wouldn't do that. And that starts to cloud the simple logic and math and scientific, basically, evidence that cannot be disputed. Kind of like some things on 9/11, again, like World Trade Center 7. Buildings do not fall at free fall speed no matter what unless they are being demolished floor by floor so that the subfloors underneath the floor that's falling falls before it, etc. So, again, and what are you saying? The government did it, or, I'm not saying I know who did it, but I can tell you one thing. The same Wall Street guys that were being investigated back then are being investigated now. And they were able to hide a lot of the crime they did back then because the investigative material was also in World Trade Center 7. They demolished that building. It's destroyed. Now you can't call the bankers out now. You can't prosecute anybody now. They had plenty of evidence to do it, waited as long as they possibly could, and then all of a sudden got rid of it. So here we are again, Hurricane Sandy this time. So thank God it wasn't a terrorist attack, false flag, but by God, the false flag has happened. It has already happened, and it was Hurricane Sandy, and it was actually under the radar for almost everybody. So, again, we have to see where this goes in the future to find out and finally say, oh, my God, that's why they did that. That's why that building flooded and then caught on fire. That's why, oh, my God, here it is today. And that day could be days, weeks, a year, 2 years, 3 years. There's no telling. But there's no way we're going to forget it. I can assure you that much.
Well, that's a great job that you did, and folks understand this. I mean, two innocent children are dead, brutally murdered. We have to, and you mentioned something too, or either directly or alluded to the satanic nature of things that are so pervasive in things like this, and we've been talking about this on our programs of late. So, and to think, and here's the problem that I have, and like a lot of other people have as well. It's difficult to think at that level of evil, when you're not used to that, or it's completely foreign to you. But things like this do happen, so it's good. Now, if I can expand this just a little bit, sir, what's on your? I mean, we're facing some hard financial times, and I mean, what's on your radar aside from this? What's on your radar, or right now? What are you looking at? What concerns you the most? What are you what are you investigating right now and trying to get out into people's out to people right now?
Well, I'm not really hot on the trail of investigating something like this whole 55 Water Street thing. I mean, I was focused on that for a little bit there, pretty heavy duty for a little bit. But there's not one particular thing that stands out. Now, I've recently told everybody, and I've said this over and over in some of my videos prior, for the last 2-3 years, that I've always wanted to go to Tennessee. I want to get away from the city life. I want to get away from this because all you have to do is look at other countries, and I'm not talking third world countries for anyone that thinks this only happens in third world countries. Argentina is a prime example. Greece, not a third world country. Spain, not a third world country by any means. Right. And these people are fighting. They're throwing Molotov cocktails back and forth. I mean, and that's just, I'm seeing this as just the beginning. This isn't even, as bad as it's going to get. So I see that, and, I have to question, I live in a county here in Florida where there's over 2 million people in the county. And that's a lot of people. So just the way things worked out with my boss and stuff, he's got a little place up there in Tennessee, kind of in the country. There's a small town. There's no restaurants. He wants to set up a small restaurant. So I'm like, yeah, I'm with you. So he wants me up there. I'm going up there ASAP, basically, is what I'm trying to tell you. And that's going to probably be in another couple months from now, around the beginning of February, that I do it. But I mean, I'm taking an entire big pay cut, getting away from IT, getting away from his other business, which he's not really messing with at the moment. He's going to be trying to sell that off here to his partner, but she wants it anyways. And it's just funny because everything's working out like this little path has kind of been laid before both of us. So we're kind of jumping on it. And I've got a house already up there laid out, ready for me to go look at in the next couple of weeks, just to make sure it's a good deal. But the reason I want to go up there, for one thing, is, man, I do not want to be in the cities when either A, in a Greece or rioting type fashion, or B, before we even get there, and or while we're there, and there's checkpoints and curfews and all that. When you see all with the purchasing of 9mm hollow point ammunition to the tune of like 1 million rounds of ammunition by the Department of Homeland Security, and then 200,000 or 300,000 rounds, whatever it was, for the Social Security group, retirement agency. Are you kidding? What do they need that for? You know what I mean? So you see this, and there's little tiny bit of writing on the wall that I'm looking at basically with my conspiratorial telescope, if you will, and I can see it. So you try to tell people about this, that's just, they're just doing what they do. And you say, well, wait a minute, we mean they're just doing what they do. Number one, does the Department of Homeland Security, are they like a military force? Are they overseas fighting? No. Are they part of the National Guard? No. Do they do police work? Are they sheriff's deputies? Are they city cops? No, they're not. So what in the hell are they doing? What are they doing? They're like this little mini police force with federal powers. It's like a federal police force with police powers, federal powers, that is on standby apparently, and they're starting to show their faces again, like when we had these elections. They were around in Tampa when they had campaigns and stuff down here, and we saw them. Excuse me. But why do they need 9mm hollow point? Number one, that's not a military round. That is a self-defense type of kill somebody round if they come break into your house or you were to shoot get in a shootout with somebody. You don't want a other type of round. You want a hollow point. So again, that many rounds of ammunition for an agency that isn't really doing anything, doesn't even really get involved in shootouts or anything. And then again, we also have them buying these bulletproof checkpoints that were listed again on the government website that everyone was pointing to about taking bids for the following contract, and one of them was bulletproof checkpoints. Again, this is not something being shipped overseas. This is for local use. Why would something like that happen if all of a sudden we're supposed to be getting ready for this great recovery, the economic conditions are going to get better, the stock market's never going to crash, it's just going to keep going up, etc. You have Hillary Clinton stepping down either in January or February urgently. You had the head of the CIA guy, the former general, he just stepped down, and that's because he cheated on his wife. Right, yeah, okay. Timothy Geithner, who was the other guy? Ben Bernanke said he's going to be stepping down around 2014, which will probably happen earlier. And someone else of notable stature also stepping down. I can't think of who that was. It was someone that was kind of important too. I can't. It slips my mind right now. All in like the span of a couple weeks of each other. So why are all these people jumping ship all of a sudden? Something is coming, and now that Barack Obama is in there for another 4 years, you can't vote him out. You're stuck with him. All the laws are being changed, just like previous dictators do. They change the laws. They change everything prior to going in for the jugular, if you will, and then the whole time is law enforcement, and everyone says, well, they haven't violated the law. Why are you guys letting them do this? They haven't violated the law. We're law enforcement. Whatever the law says, we have to go by. And they do it every single time.
You're right. I mean, never before has there been the resources, like the armored pillbox checkpoint things, the 1.4 billion rounds of ammunition bought by DHS, and the framework, which is the legislation or the executive orders, NDAA, the Enemy Expatriation Act. Everything's in place and ready to go. We're just waiting for the catalyst to get us there. And we were told, my father was told by a source inside the Homeland Security Department, that we would see unrest due to an economic event and or food shortages back in the beginning of the summer.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that at all.
Yeah, the way we're going, what do you see in the near future with the gold and silver markets and the metal markets? Would you say, I mean, I know you're along the line of train of thought that we are. It's not a matter of if the economy collapses, but a matter of when.
Yes.
So do you think, I guess, precious metals, food, what commodities would you say are most important to gain right now while we still have a dollar that holds somewhat of value?
There's three basic things. Silver, and again, if someone wants to go with gold, you're going to be real happy with the way gold performs. However, you're going to be doing backflips when you see how silver performs. So I always say silver. I am 100% in silver. I used to be in a little bit of gold and a lot of silver. That was probably a couple of years ago, I think now. And I completely got out of gold and I'm straight physical silver coins. I usually go for the Silver Eagles. Get as many as you can, as many as you feel comfortable with, and then some. That's one thing. So get your silver. You're going to need food. And when I say food, I don't mean like just stocking your shelves with extra stuff. I mean food that in a dire straight emergency, all hell breaks loose. And I don't mean fighting and that kind of thing. I mean like major catastrophe kind of thing. You got canned goods at least. And one of the places we would get from was a company called Thrive. And you can order right online. You can even do a monthly thing where they ship you X amount of stuff per month. Like you can put in a budget basically. They ship it right to your door. I preferred to do like a big purchase at first, and that's what I did. And then we started, after that, said, well, we've already accumulated what we wanted, so let's go ahead and just do the monthly thing to get a little bit of excess. And that's what we did with that. So I've got plenty of food. So that's and the last thing, by the way, is a way to protect your stuff, your family, your food, because in a crisis situation, when other people, especially when I say other people, I mean the 90 whatever percent, 95, 98 whatever percent that we call sheeple.
Right.
Or just simply the unaware. It's the unaware who are going to be the most dangerous, simply because they never knew it was coming. They're now kind of like that dog in a corner, immediately pushed in the corner, out of their comfort zone. I'm in the corner. What do? I got to live. I got to survive. They will kill or hurt somebody so fast without thinking twice, because they may think the end of their world's coming right now and I've got to do something. I mean, all you have to do is look at Hurricane Katrina, and that was happening in many pockets of areas within that whole thing, Hurricane Katrina down in Louisiana. So that was like a baby test, if you will, for what I think is potentially coming And I know that, the Mayan calendar ends in this month or next month, December 21st, 2012. Do I think that all of a sudden that's like the day? I don't believe so. I mean, that's my opinion. I do not think so. But I am paying attention to the sun activity, the earth, Terra activity, the earthquake activity, volcanic stuff, the space particles, things that are not normally bombarding our earth like they are. I mean, these things are not going away. Not only are they not going away, they're becoming more active.
Yep.
So until I see that activity subside and start to show a pattern of decreasing, then I'll, filter out and say, okay, well, I don't think anything bad or whatever has happened thus far, that's as bad as it was going to get. So, in other words, if we're in 2013 and I'm still not seeing all these things subsiding, then I have no reason to believe whatsoever that all of a sudden the coast is clear, 2012, December 21st came and went, all is great. There's no way. And again, with this thing being a 5,000, 125-year cycle, lots of ancient peoples and Indians and stuff have talked about this. Great changes come. They didn't say it would be at the stroke of midnight on some certain day, but it did mark a period to basically let all of us know we better, future humanity, you better mark this time frame down. Therefore, is it the next 1 year, 2 years, 5 years? I don't know, and to be honest with you, I don't care. I've been prepping the whole time to deal with something like that, along with economic collapse. And I know there's a lot of people out there that say, well, I'm dirt broke. I'm just dirt poor. I can't afford hardly anything besides paycheck to paycheck. The thing is, and this is probably the most valuable thing for those people, is they may not have to have something. If you live somewhere and there's people around you that may have money, or you put yourself in a position to be around those people, when the timing is right, they're not going to have a damn clue about what to do and where's this going and what do we do. Whereas you can offer your simple advice of what you've learned over these years or whatever to those people in exchange for, hey, since you guys got, money and this and that, you can kind of lead them and, of course, ride their coattail. That's my advice for anybody that is just simply has no money, I can't buy silver, can't buy extra food, can't do this, can't move, can't, because it looks grim when you think about that and you put yourself in that situation. But it's not, because knowledge is always proven to be powerful. So if you have the knowledge, you will fit right in immediately. You will become basically a leader immediately in a crisis situation, and you're going to have people coming to you for advice, what should we do, this and that, and you may have all the answers that they need to hear. Even if they're not the greatest answers, at least you have answers, and at that point, of course, everyone's going to become a believer. That's when, like I say, the truth goes in three phases. First, it is ridiculed. Second, is violently opposed, and then third, it's common knowledge. So this whole thing is all ridicule, and everybody hates you, and you're a prepper, we're sending the government after you, right, the violent part, and then all of a sudden everyone's faced with a catastrophe, and then it becomes common knowledge for at least everyone who lives through it.
Well, let me ask you this. You've been doing this a while, and we have as well, and we've noticed a change. I mean, there are some kooky things that have happened out there, some things that, normal, reasonable people have to admit today that, this is not right. There is something going on. Have you seen any type of awakening of the masses to any significant degree over the last, we'll say, several months?
Over the last several months, I actually can't say, but over the last, when I used to research this stuff, I spent a lot of time in my, and I'm talking like 2007, 2008 time frame, spending a lot of my time back then on the 9/11 thing. I spent an awful lot of time researching that. So I would go and see these comments on these documentaries and videos I'm watching, and all of them, 8 or 9 out of 10, were just people saying, you guys are a bunch of kooks and idiots, and and I'm thinking, well, how are they not seeing this evidence right in their face? Like, why are they saying these things? And then I didn't care. I didn't have to comment to them, so I just kept doing my thing, doing more research. And then seemed like a year or two would go by, and I'd go back and happen to land on that video again and just look at some comments, and it's completely reversed. Now it's like there's two people, sheeple people, whatever, and then the other 8 or 9 are people who understand, hey, something was wrong with this picture, and they're actually having a legitimate conversation now rather than just calling people, idiots. Now they definitely want to look into it. So, again, I think it's these phases of the truth where maybe we're in between that. Some people may be in the first and second stage. Other people are going to the second and third stage where it's becoming common knowledge, where before they would get angry and violent and, even if you want to call it violent postings against somebody or whatever. And now it's becoming, hey, I kind of accept that. And it's funny because people don't like to admit that they've changed in that respect. Everyone wants to think, well, I always knew that, or I was never on that page,
Yeah.
So people just kind of remain silent and don't really lash out anymore. They're just kind of like listening, observing, maybe even on the same page, but they just don't want to say anything, so they're just kind of quiet. I kind of see some of that in, I'd say, recent times. I don't know, I can't really comment on like the last few months. I haven't seen anything in the last like 2 or 3 months that makes me think all of a sudden people are wanting to, to wake up kind of thing. Because I'm just not seeing that. Because when I look at Black Friday, what just happened on Black Friday, it's just, it's sad. It's actually depressing. As much as I already know what I'm going to see, I already know what these people are going to be doing. I've already seen a million of these things. It is still depressing to see that our economic conditions are still crap. The numbers coming out are still crap. Economic numbers, job numbers are still crap, and there's still piles of people, as Mark Dice said, buying stuff they don't need with money they do not have, and booing him as he bullhorned them saying that as he drove by. It was actually a fantastic video he did. I was just loving it. But it's sad because that's society. That's the city life. That's the normal life, if you will. And when I went up to Tennessee a few times with my boss here recently, it's a whole different world. And I'm not talking Nashville or major, Chattanooga and the major cities. I'm talking the country life. These people are nice. They're slow. Everyone cares about each other. Everyone wants to help each other. If you ride someone's butt because you want to go around them, they will actually pull off the side of the road just to let you by and then wave at you to let you by. Like, oh, hey man, what's up? No problem. When you think you're getting ready for them to flip you a bird, no, they're like waving, no problem. Go ahead and go around. Actually get off the road in the dirt on the side and then get back on to let you go by. That's the kind of people you want to be around, people that care, people that are not caught up in this damn society we're in today where everything is just, about doing the grind, work, pick up the kids, go to school, do this, do that, got to pay these bills, high taxes, high everything. The money that these people paid in, for example, New Jersey and like Staten Island and Long Island stuff in New York. My dad's sister was in, I think, was she in Long Island, Evelyn? Or Long Island? Yeah. And right. She says to my dad, she lives in the freaking canals right behind her. I'm going to just stay in the house when this hurricane comes. I'm just going to move my car across the street. My dad says, get the hell out of the house. Out of your mind, your car's going to be underwater. Your house is 2 stories, and it may, get flooded. So you're out of your mind. She stayed in the house. Car got flooded. House was destroyed. Having said that, she was the lowest. She was like in the worst one of the whole neighborhood, and her taxes were over $4,000 a year. The average on her street were like $7,000 to $8,000 taxes a year. And I asked the other day in a video, I said, if anyone happens to know, I'd love to know the ratio of where all that money goes. And 2/3 of it, someone told me, they did the stats, 2/3 of the money in that area goes to the school system. In any way, shape, or form, goes to the school system. So 2/3 of your property taxes goes to the public school system, the whole thing as a whole. And I'm thinking, wow, that's per house, per year. So, of course, you got all these teachers and all these unelected officials and all these things that got to get paid, and they got to have their pensions, and they got to have the unions. And is that what I want? And then I go to Tennessee, 10.5 acres, 4-bedroom, 1 bath, 2-car workshop with electricity in a air tank compressor, a small barn. Again, 10.5 acres. It's flat land. It's crop growing land for $49,000. Are you freaking kidding me? So I contacted them. I sent them a down payment, sent them a little check to hold it, and I'm telling you, we're going to be on our way here shortly. And then I look at the property taxes, and you think is it missing 2 decimal points? Like not even 1. Is it missing 2 decimal points? It's so low. Am I reading this right? No, that's right. Yes, sir. That's the correct. You don't have to go pull these massive permits and got to get city approval to put a little shed on my property or another building. You just go down. Most of the time, you just do it. If it's a certain type of structure, you just go get the permit. It doesn't even matter what you're doing. You get this real cheap permit and you build. You do stuff.
So you have neighbors. A real sense of a little bit of freedom in private property.
I live in my house now. Again in Tampa, I've got a whole 0.23 of an acre or a quarter of an acre. Oh boy, I could do a whole lot here. I could drive in a circle maybe if I'm lucky, with my car. So when you think about, well, what's your share of the American dream? What do you own in this American country? What is actually yours? You know, personal property or private property. That is the key thing for people. I mean, that is what you should. That should reflect what people actually have as being a citizen of the country. What is yours? You know, what is your part of this country? Oh, I live in a, you know, basically a prison environment where neighbors are 8 feet away from me, and we all go to do the grind every day. No one has any real property. And that's the end of the story. So you go out there, and everybody is acres and acres and acres apart from each other. The only problem, and I know this sucks, is that you can't just decide, well, I've had it with the city life, I'm going to go move. Okay, well, you got a job. How are you going to pay those bills?
Right.
So you're stuck because of this damn crappy system. You are stuck being a slave, even though you don't even know you're a slave, to a company you have to work for, even though you may say, well, I love my job. You still have to have that job because you still have to pay bills. You still have to pay taxes. You still got to pay property taxes. You'll never get away from that. Therefore, you have to have a job. And it's almost like we're free slaves, so to speak, because we don't have prison doors locking us in. We get to come and go free, but we get to come and go. And if they destroy the housing market on us, now we're in prison for the rest of our lives because we'll never be able to pay down the mortgage in time to sell it. We'll have to stay in here for 30 years to pay the mortgage because we took out a loan that we thought was right that turned out to blow up in our faces because of the bankers. So as you may know, I do not pay my mortgage. I found complete massive fraud, chain of title problems, all kinds of stuff wrong with my mortgage and the documents. I quit paying. I'm fighting it now in court. And I told all my YouTube subscribers I'll be keeping them exactly up to date with every step of the process so that if I win this court case, they will know step by step what I did, what my answers were to the lawsuit, et cetera, through my lawyer. And I'm telling you right now, there are more and more cases where the homeowner is getting the house because of the fraud and the improper paperwork, the improper chain of title. And once that chain of title is broken, it cannot be legally and properly fixed. It is finished. So
that's true. Yeah.
So, anyways,
if you don't mind, tell our listeners where they can find you and what's available on your channel.
Well, on YouTube, it's the letter J and then Snip, JSnip, and then number 4, so it's JSnip 4. Or just search for Realist News. I'm guarantee you'll see me because all my videos start with that title, Realist News. I have a website, realistnews.net. It's kind of a forum where I just post breaking news kind of stuff every day. Or not necessarily breaking, but just important stuff people need to know. It's not nonsense. It's not just some place to hang out and talk garbage. This is, it's kind of important stuff. A friend of mine and I, we put together another website that's kind of, I'm not going to call it a Facebook rival because they have such a huge market, share of the whole population, but I'm tired of seeing people getting abused on Facebook, getting their posts sent to the FBI automatically because they wrote something wrong, and then people, cops knocking on their door, invasion of privacy like you can't believe. So we put up a website that is the same thing as Facebook, but it's called freespeak.net. And finally, I'm doing a YouTube clone. I think I may have even mentioned it last time. I just haven't got it up yet. I call it a clone. It's not really a clone, but it's a video sharing website because, again, I'm tired of watching very good people do videos from Syria and stuff telling us what's happening, only to find out I click on all of them that I was subscribed to, and it was a total of 3. Sorry, this user violated the terms. They're gone. Next one, same thing. Next one, same thing. And they didn't violate anything. They were simply reporting by themselves. So I'm tired of that crap going on. So I want a place where people can feel safe to upload their videos and not have that crap happen. So I'm not going to give out the website name yet because it's not fully functional, but it is extremely close to being going live. So just stay tuned to JSnip4 on YouTube, and trust me, when it goes live, and for free, the freespeak.net website, you can go there now and sign up. I would urge you guys to, because there are like-minded people like you can't believe on that website. Not the nonsense on Facebook about crap. Trust me.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on the show again, and we will definitely have you on again if you want to come back when you get that other site up, or for any other reason. Information you need to get out.
Tremendous amount of information tonight. You packed in an hour. That's great.
I feel like I just got started. I always think, man, am I going to be able to go like an hour? What am I going to talk about? And then I'm doing it. I'm like, man, don't we have like a couple hours? I got some more to talk about. So I appreciate being on the show. And anytime. I mean, anytime you want me on, just again hit me up, and I'll be glad to come. I really enjoy being on your guys' show.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll have you back, and we really appreciate your time tonight. God bless you, sir, and keep up the good fight, and keep probing these various coincidences. I'm sure that's all they are. It's just circumstantial.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Right. Yeah, tongue in cheek. Well, God bless you, my friend. Appreciate you being on. We're up against the top of the hour.
All right, guys, take care.
All right, have a good one. That was JSnip4, realistnews.net, or JSnip4 on YouTube. You can find his channel there, watch all kinds of videos.
Yeah, he does a good job. He really does.
On all kinds of issues, and the diversity of issues and the intelligence he brings, and it just makes it great. So go check that out, guys. We're up against the top of the hour break. We'll be back with our third and final hour after these short messages. Stay with us.
If you are stumped, you don't know what kind of gift to give to a friend or a loved one, I'm telling you, you must go to 4physics.com. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. This is your one-stop shopping palace. That's the only way I can put it. I could spend easily an hour on this website. Innovative, fun, educational. There are games, books, weather instruments, unique time-telling devices, jewelry, optical devices, laboratory equipment. Let me give you an example. We all know we can tell time with a sundial. You've seen those advertised. Did you know that you could tell time by the stars? At 4physics.com, you can buy a horologium nocturnum. This was a navigational device used in the 15th century by navigators at night to tell time by the stars. It's beautifully crafted in the shape of a pendant made of bronze and pewter or gold and silver. Absolutely a stunning gift. I would be proud to give it to anyone. You must go to 4physics.com. Even if you're not stumped, that's 4physics. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. It's your one-stop shopping palace. Any problems that you have, I don't know what to get Grandpa, I don't know what to get my loved one, that's unique, you will find it at 4physics.com. Please take my word for it. Go to the website, but give yourself a lot of time because you're not going to want to leave. 4physics.com.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood. KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Doug Hagmann. One guy that doesn't need a bullhorn to get your attention.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
And welcome back, folks, to hour number 3 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for this, the 27th day of November 2012. I'm Doug Hagmann, and of course with me is my son, my co-host, Joe Hagmann, and together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. That was a great second hour. You know, folks, we followed the murder of the two young children in New York City and the nanny and the CNBC connection and the lawsuit. You know, there's just so many elements to that story. What really, however, was troublesome, I suppose, to me, was with more or less like I mean, if you think back to things like Watergate and various other issues, big issues, it's always like the cover up, isn't it? That really is sometimes it tells more than the actual elements of the crime or the reporting of the crime, and this is something that we had done before, right after the facts were in about the tragedy in New York City, where the references to various articles were scrubbed off of websites, off CNBC and other places. So, look, regardless of your
not only
thoughts,
that, Drudge had the article up and pulled it within hours. There's a couple of sites that did that. CNBC.
Yeah, it's stuff that it just makes you go, And if that makes us, for example, conspiracy whack jobs, well, okay, then we'll wear that with the badge of honor, because there comes a point when you've got to take a few steps back and to look at whatever the situation is, and even if and think outside the box, because that's the only way that we can really get to the truth, and we can shed the limitations by. Look, I know myself as an investigator, sometimes people do some really odd things, or things that you never would expect, or things that you're not, what you're looking at. You could be looking at something and thinking, processing this like the scene in your mind, but be totally off base. That's why you really can't. You can't approach these situations with any specific prejudice or blinders. You've got to look at everything, and even if it sounds really out there, and we realize that extraordinary claims requires extraordinary evidence, but we're not talking here about the standard of beyond any reasonable doubt. We're looking at this, sure, perhaps in a courtroom setting, but with the preponderance of evidence. And what's the likelihood of, events A, B, and C taking place? And just more or less doing an honest intellectual analysis. And we find, too, in regardless of the case, a lot of folks will stop because it makes them uncomfortable, or they're fearful of being called, conspiracy people, and
having that fear of what other people think about you.
Exactly. Don't let that stop you.
Never.
No. To search for the truth, that's the only thing, and that we're doing.
Being your own individual is what's missing in this society, aside from morality and Christian or any kind of real moral basis or foundation. It is, as our guest last hour said, people going through the everyday daily grind don't even know the crash that's coming. It's like drones, we are worker drones, worker bees, as people of the elites refer to us, the useless eaters. It is looked upon as good now in the schools when nobody has a question or an adverse comment. It is not looked upon as good, where in the days of old, individualism, freedom of expression, being your own person was looked upon as something good, and that's where many people got their inspiration growing up and becoming entrepreneurs and all these different things. And we had huge expansions and the number one growth of a nation ever. I mean, look at the wealth this nation has gathered through a true free market system. Now to see it working in the opposite direction, and seeing the people going in the opposite direction, it is really sad. But we need to gain that self-reliance when it comes to things on this earth, and our spiritual reliance on the Lord. We have to get those back into the minds of everyday Americans. And if we can't do that, we will be lost as a nation. This nation is doomed if we can't get this back into people's minds.
Well, exactly. And look, truth seekers will be mocked and ridiculed, and we have, and as you said, Joe, earlier too, we're doing this with respect to with the guidance and the guidance of the spiritual aspect. I don't want to. I wanted to choose my words carefully, which it didn't come out properly, but we're approaching this with as much intellectual honesty, morality, and ethics as possible, approaching any of the subjects. And we know bad things are coming down the road. And one thing that that gentleman said earlier too, I was talking with a friend earlier today, and he said, during the Depression of the last Great Depression here in this country, 1929. Various parts of the country experienced the Depression differently, and of course I was not around at the time, but obviously, although Joe, you might think I was, but it's back then. For example, places in rural California did not feel the effects of the Great Depression as they did in we'll say Chicago or other cities.
Well, in the cities, they've built up. People don't have the ability to do things that people in rural areas do.
But I think, though, I think that when we have to, or I think that when we look at prepare for what's coming down, we realize that there's going to be economic strife. We realize that the dollar is going to suffer, and people say it's the economy. Let's be clear about this. It's the dollar. It's really not the economy. And I was corrected on that earlier today. And I'm glad I was, because there's a huge difference between the economy. Hey, the stock market's up, everything. No, it's the dollar. That's where our vulnerability, that's where the problem is going to be. So, words are important. They do mean things, and we have to be pretty specific. But I, in my conversation again today with this gentleman, we went through the whole thing again. Well, what is one to do? What's the average person like you and I? I mean, hey, do you have a ton of money in the bank? Probably not. I mean, no. We're just normal people doing normal things. So what do we do? How do we approach this? Aside from that spiritual foundation, we have to have that, of course. And then of course, the mental preparation and the psychological and the spiritual preparation. We need that. But practically, what do we do? And the gentleman did mention something too about getting with, or he implied this anyway, getting with like-minded people. And that's something that I really would stress at this point, at this late hour. Why don't we, let's urge others. I mean, start forming as leaders, in your zone of influence, start forming getting people of like-mindedness together. And make these, or assist in coalescing these groups, because we're not going to be able to handle this, or we shouldn't really have to handle this, what's coming, alone, by ourselves, okay? I mean, it's just, so if we can, just start talking, approach the subject with others carefully, cautiously, and just kind of feel that, get the feeling of where the other person's at that you might be talking to. That's something that we can do, because it'll be a lot better to weather this storm. And it's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to be. It might feel like it, certainly at the time, but when we come out of this darkness that we're entering, when we come out the other side, we will be blessed because we made it, because we fought. And when I say fought, I'm talking about we were spiritually and mentally prepared, and we were, we did whatever was necessary to get through to the other side. So we're going to be blessed by doing so. So really, there is hope. I got an email today, somebody saying, "Well, boy, you're always gloom and doom," and man, that's not what we want to do. I mean, certainly reporting the news is gloom and doom, or reporting what's going on is gloom and doom. But we don't want to propagate that gloom and doom. We know, for example, Agenda 21. It's infiltrated every locality across the United States. Really, there's I don't know if there's anything that's been untouched by Agenda 21. So it's part of the globalist agenda. So look, things are, there is bad news out there, but we can make it through together. And if we can be a part of that, we, meaning Joe and I, and then you folks can be a part of that. Let's see what we can do. And I'm open to suggestions too. I've had a couple of requests. Hey, can you coordinate some people, hooking up geographically and things like that. And quite frankly,
that's really
Joe,
our next step.
But I'm not sure even how to do that. And look, ladies and gentlemen,
we don't need to know how. We need to have the faith in the Lord. If that's something that we want to do, we have to pray about it. We have to know that that's what the Lord wants us to do for Him.
Right.
And if that is what He wants us to do, then we just, do what we have to do to get it rolling and have faith that He will take care of the rest, because if we don't have that faith, it won't be successful.
Well, yeah, but I'd also be interested in hearing from our listeners, too, if this is something that we could help you with, or if you think that we would serve you well by doing so, we would do that. It's just, and you're right. I mean, because when we stepped into where we're at right now, we had no clue. And as you can well tell by listening to us on a nightly basis, we still don't have a clue of what we're doing. Now, I shouldn't say that, but you know what I mean. It's not. We're certainly not polished, and we're certainly not professional. But we're doing what we feel we're led to do, with as much honesty and ethics as possible, or that we've got. And sometimes that's all we've got.
After the show, when I was driving home last night, I was thinking about, our unprofessionalism.
Well,
and I say it because there's a truth in there. I mean,
we're not trying to put anything on. I mean, trying to put any airs on. Right?
You've been a career private investigator. I've been working with you for a number of years.
Yeah.
We don't have any media, broadcasting, communications backgrounds in education or experience aside from this.
Yeah, no one gave me the manual, or us the manual, the instruction book, how to do this stuff.
And I was just thinking how amazing it is to know nothing about it. We have information, and we've done a lot of research. Aside from that, bringing it to an audience, presenting it in a manner that the audience not only likes it, they respond to it, and the audience continues to grow. I mean, we are so blessed that the position we are in right now, and also
I'll go back to what
the
Steve
responsibility
says,
factor.
Yes.
We don't have a margin of error, especially when it comes to Scripture. And that's why, some broadcasts, it seems like we're more into Scripture, more into spirituality than news, and sometimes we're not. And that reason we're not is sometimes our getting a correct understanding of it, trying to be able to present it properly without screwing anything up. But this is a learning process for all of us. I mean, when has anybody listening to the show right now remembered a time in the earth when everything seemed so doom and gloomy,
Yeah, and I asked my wife today, I said, and she, to be honest with you, she really doesn't listen to the show, which is fine. I mean, for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is I asked her not to. But I said, what do you see happening? You're kind of, I want to say normal, or, the average person, and not to demean, I'm not going to put any disclaimers in there. I just said, what do you see happening here with respect to the economy and everything? And she said, things will get bad. But she says, I don't see it getting as bad as you think it will. So I asked her, well, what do you base that on? And she said, well, it's just a feeling I've got. I mean, okay. And I said, okay, that's fine. But as the conversation progressed, I could sense that she was starting to turn. She's saying, well, wait a minute, really, you know what? When I start to think about this, maybe you're right. Maybe things are going to get bad, but but it's just this unwillingness to address this. I'm not even sure where I was going with that, but
way to go. Unprofessionalism.
Yeah,
firsthand.
no, there you go. Yeah. So, but yeah, we're just trying to deliver, without any spit and polish on the information. We're just trying to get this information out there. One thing that caught my eye, folks. Have you? I'm not sure how many people have seen this. I got a bad feeling about as I was investigating, researching some things with Obama and the gun laws. You know how, like, you turn into various news channels, and Obama, people are saying, "Oh, Obama doesn't want to go after your guns," and there's not going to be any. He's never expressed an interest to confiscate or to regulate your guns.
He doesn't want to go after your guns, just your clips, your bullets, your
magazines.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, Keith.
Yeah. There was an article on InfoWars, and I did some research on this as well.
The noted gun right activist,
yeah, John Snyder,
warns Obama may skirt Congress and outlaw semi-automatics.
Yeah, and this goes back a number of years, obviously. Well, it goes back to the National Firearms Act back in 1968, but essentially here, what we see taking place, or what our research is showing, is these high-capacity magazines. You're going to start seeing them become unavailable. Much like you're seeing right after the election, you saw the run on weapons and such. Now, if you're listening to this program and you really don't care about weapons, just bear with us for a minute. And if you're knowledgeable about weapons and ammunition, then you'll understand. It would appear that a couple of things are taking place behind this. So if you look at this article, that's one thing. But if you take this a couple of steps back and then get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on, it would appear that this current administration wants to push a registry. And once that registry is in place, a national registry, and even perhaps have it administered by the United Nations or under the auspices of the United Nations, which would not sit very well, except if you think about this under the guise of a total, I don't want to say total collapse, but near anarchy in big cities. Okay. So you would have this, all right, well, with all the shootings and such that would go on with that, you'd have to have some semblance of control. You bring in the United Nations, registering the firearms, perhaps limiting the magazine capacity, even to the extent of turning in some guns. This is what's behind this. And I think that there are many, many aspects to the gun, the attacks on the Second Amendment, and even the First, that are being set up to be answers or to be used at the time of a financial event. So in other words, they are creating the solutions to temper, or they're creating ways to temper the collateral, the fallout from an economic event right now. It's almost like they're saying, look, we know this is going to happen, so before it happens, let's kind of put the squeeze on guns. Let's put the squeeze on freedom of speech, where you'd have to quell dissent. Why? Because dissent could cause the masses to become more hysterical and cause more trouble. They're actually creating the solutions before we're witnessing the problems. Does that make sense, Joe? Okay. And we've seen this happen historically. And I think that's what's taking place right now. And one thing I don't see would be an all-out door-to-door gun grab. Yeah, I don't see it, because I don't think that will be necessary.
I can see it happening. If you take into context some kind of disaster, some kind of some national disaster, say the power grid is wiped out. You don't see the Department of Homeland Security, the government police agencies that have assembled all these weapons and law enforcement equipment and resources, along with our Army, our military, our National Guard people. If some national disaster were to happen, you can't see them at least going at the top 100 cities, door to door, and taking away the guns of the people, especially a week or two after people dying off or killing each other. And
that's the key there, which you mentioned, like the top 100 cities or whatever. I can see something taking place, not on a national level, but geographically segmented areas. I can see that taking place, or at travel checkpoints, like they did in Katrina. I could see that taking place, but let's say an all-out 100%, gun grab, every city, right now, I don't see that because they know that there would be bloodshed. But I waver back and forth on this because who knows really what we do know that economically we're going to be suffering, and we're going to have money. See, and when I mentioned about the dollar and not the economy, we're going to have Federal Reserve notes in our pockets. But the problem with that is we're not going to be able to afford to buy, because of the devaluation of the dollar, the groceries or the food that's necessary to sustain us. So from that point, there I can see where we're going to have issues. So it's not going to be like they're going to grab the money out of your pocket. Now, the electronic funds that you have on deposit, that's going to be something different because they can dilute that or take that. But if you're walking around with $1,000 in your pocket, that might buy you a couple of tanks of gas. I don't know. I can see that having the money but not be able to buy anything, and that
would be a terrible situation to be in.
Yeah, but we've seen it before. We've seen it happen in various countries and such. Anyway.
Yeah, but one thing we don't ever have to lose hope, though, no matter how poor or hopeless things seem.
And that's, that circles right back to what you were saying, yes.
Our spirit never has to be in distress. I was reading 2 Corinthians today. And folks, give us a call. We have a half hour left and 30 seconds left to take phone calls at 661-244-9839. We have a few on hold, and we'll come to you guys in a second here. But I was reading Corinthians today, chapter 4, verse 8, and it says, we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed. Always bearing about in the body of the dying, the dying of the Lord Jesus, that the life also of Jesus might be made manifest in our body. But the part about being troubled on every side, but not distressed, being persecuted, but not forsaken, being cast down, but not destroyed. We have to remember that. We are going to face persecutions. We are going to face the stumbling blocks we've talked about. We are going to be perplexed, confused at what is happening around us. But we always have one thing that we can rely on, and that is the Lord.
That's right. And we've got to put our faith there.
And I would suggest, if I was going to read the whole 2 Corinthians on air today, but that's not a good idea. I don't have the nice reading voice, but that would be my reading for today if you guys want to do a little Bible reading, extra Bible reading. Moving on to the phones here. We're going to go to area code 306. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, how are you doing, guys?
Very well.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you absolutely fine. There's a couple of second delays, so you'll have to kind of recognize that when we talk.
Not a problem. I was just calling in earlier there to just say that I'm very thankful for your guys' program. I was led to it by the Spirit, no doubt, that I came across it. Stumbled onto Steve Quayle's page one night and came across your page and read a few articles, and just wanted to say, thank you guys for being on the air.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you listening. You know, caller, what's your take on things today? I mean, obviously you've been to the different websites. You sound like you do your own research of news. Where do you see us at today? I'm kind of, you know, are you in agreement with us that things are bad and going to get worse? What's your spirit telling you?
Personally, I would. I think where I'm at, regionally, demographically, calling from Canada, a lot of people are more bitter clinger in our area. So some people are more aware, some people aren't. But generally, there's an undercurrent of understanding, I guess, in our area, whereas maybe other areas of the country that I have lived, there wouldn't be that. There's more effectiveness depending on maybe the more condensed the population would be.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a good observation. Do you think that there's enough of people who are awake that could make a difference? I'm not even sure how to phrase that question, but do we stand a chance?
I think if enough people that are awake get back to the moral standing of, you know, following Christ and His example and what's led in the Bible, I don't think it's enough to just be awake and aware of what's going on. I think that we do have to get back and individually get on our knees and make things right with ourselves, and then that will outwardly affect the rest of the people around us. And not everybody is going to wake up. It talks about that all throughout Scripture, that, you know, with those with ears to hear and eyes to see.
Very good. Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that the moral integrity, spiritual component, with emphasis on the spiritual component, because if you've got your spiritual house in order and if you're set well with if you're a follower of Jesus, and you've got, obviously your moral and ethical life will fall into line as well, or it should. So that's a big part of it, and that's what a lot of programs don't really address, and we try to, you know, combine that in this program. So,
and that's the thing for your show.
Very good.
It's getting back. You guys push that. It's, you know, you want to get back to that. I hear that in how you address your topics, and like you guys said earlier, you know, sometimes maybe the show doesn't reflect that because you don't want to misrepresent it. And with how you guys were joking about being unprofessional, I did a little bit of radio 1 year in my life, and I can understand how that you feel that way. But you know what? I think a lot of your listeners, and I personally, I speak for myself only, I guess, but I know that I appreciate that measure of unprofessionalism, because it's very honest, it's very open, it's very real, it's very from the heart, and it's not telepromptered.
That's for doggone sure. And we try to keep it like family. We try to keep it casual. And the other thing we try to do as well is we try to make sure that people have the ability to talk and to say what's on their mind, not feel rushed, pressured, and if they make a mistake, so what? You know, so do we all the time. So
we're all human.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we appreciate your call and your compliments. Sir, is there anything else you'd like to say before we let you go?
No, I really just called in to just say thank you guys for being on the air, and I pray that the Lord allows you to stay on the air for as long as you guys can be around to stay on the air. As long as the airwaves are up, I guess, right?
That's right. That's right. As long as we're allowed to spread the word of God and to give the information in the manner that it's you know, proper and in the proper context. So that's true. Very good. All right, my friend. Thank you so much for the call. All right.
Oh, not a problem.
All right.
Have a great night.
You too.
You too. Brother in Canada.
Yeah, Joe, I'm going to I'm not sure we talked about this, but the painting, there's a painting out there now, folks. Did you see this painting depicts Obama as a crucified Christ? This goes in conjunction with that Jamie Foxx, totally separate stories, but it's kind of the same genre as that Jamie Foxx Messiah.
No, I saw the picture of the painting, and I got numerous emails about that.
Right.
And then I saw people in chat saying, and I also saw people in other internet forums saying the picture's old, the painting's old, or this is an old story. I'm not sure that's true or not.
Well, okay, it's off of Fox News. When you say that the story is old, I don't know. It's being reported as current by Fox News.
Okay.
And it's a painting by Michael somebody or other. I can't pronounce the name.
I just looked at the painting. I didn't read anything.
Okay. Well, the Road to the White House 2012. It was the is Artist on the Stump. The Road to the White House 2012. So it can't be that old. It's on display at the Bunker Hill Community College Art Gallery until the 15th of December. So I guess, when I'm looking at this, and thinking that this is more than just various people saying things about Obama, whether it's Jamie Foxx or this artist here painting, making this painting. To me, there's something more going on here. And I don't know if it's something deliberate, organized, or if it's just this feeling. But and then I just see this blasphemous movement.
Oh yeah,
that will also encompass Christians and Jews. And folks, I got to tell you, just from what we're seeing, because of the rockets going into Israel and Israel's retaliation, we're seeing such an increase in anti-Jewish and anti-Christian sentiment out here in America. If you go to various internet forums that will talk about Israel and talk about how they have no right to that land and so on, there's so much misinformation that is being pushed, and the blasphemous activity is on the rise. That's a problem.
Yes, it is. And it will continue to rise. And it will continue to get more violent in its message. It will continue to get more impatient. And it will continue to get more bold and in your face. And it'll move from the computers to the churches, to outside the churches, to a point where, like, the Jews were labeled in Nazi Germany by having the Star of David painted on their windows? Or what was the symbol that was painted on the store owners who were Jewish in Germany's windows?
Well, Star of David, right?
That was what they used to mark, and then didn't they use things to mark the people?
Well, for example,
before they started to really round.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, different people, homosexuals had a certain armband color, and then
right.
there
was a way to tell them a difference from a normal citizen. So they were marked. They were labeled.
Normal, right? Yes.
So, and that will happen here. In my estimation, if they don't go for the jugular from everyone, through some kind of disaster, but the persecution of Christians is prophesied about in the Bible.
Right.
It's almost guaranteed, and fortunately for Americans, we've been so blessed to be able to have a venue, a country that still allows some free speech, or most free speech, where in other countries people are knowing they're going to be killed for preaching the gospel, do it anyway. Now,
well,
America is, I mean, the rest of the world is going to be catching up with America in that regard. I really feel, as it is prophesied about. We are not anything special. We are not immune from persecution. We are not immune from the things, the calamities, the things that are going to come across the whole earth. It's going to be all of us, including the United States. The too big to fail mentality, it can't happen here. Throw all that out the window, because that is not true.
Right.
Just because it's not happening right now doesn't mean it can't happen. But when the writing's on the wall, when the things are in place, basically outlining a path taken in history before, where similar things took place, I mean, we are so close to that model of...
We are.
Nazi Germany. So it's going to be coming.
And as the book, the one book I was reading from or citing yesterday, the parallels between current America and Nazi Germany are often overdrawn and overemphasized, and sometimes taken to the extreme. But we can see what is taking place. Now, it might not follow that road precisely. However, the antagonism toward Christianity, the antagonism toward any Judeo-Christian religion, is ramping up so much right now. It's incredible.
That, along with false doctrine, just completely I shouldn't say unestablished, unbacked religions, and this was prophesied about happening too. There will be all kinds of false religions that come forth. I mean, we have Scientology. We have all these crazy denominations that have nothing to do with the Bible at all, but call themselves religions. Just an apostasy, as Steve Quayle talks about, happening. And really, a lot of it isn't even by the knowledge of the people who call themselves Christians.
I understand that. And I've had a number of people ask, geez, how close are we to things, changing and hitting the fan and such? The only thing I can say is, studying the Bible, no man knows the day, the hour, or whatever. And I would take that to even our current situation. But we know that we are in a zone of heightened risk right now, a zone of maximum vulnerability. And, it's interesting, too. A lot of people don't understand, for example, what's going on in the Middle East. You know that when we see missiles, rockets, I should say, going into Israel, some of those were constructed, that's Chinese technology. Okay, there are so many interests in the Middle East that are engaged in battle. You've got the Russians and you've got the Chinese. We're gearing up for a perfect storm, and as I said, we are in a heightened state, as a zone of heightened risk right now. And boy, it's almost difficult to explain, especially in a very short amount of time that we have left. But like I said, I would urge everyone to read the article about Benghazi. I know that folks are probably sick of hearing it, but that's a window to what's really going on, and it kind of gives you a glimpse of things. It has all the elements in there. It has you can see all the players in this. We've got Russia, we've got China. Russia and China both have a stake in Iran. And we, the United States, are engaged in a proxy war with Iran and Syria, and by extension by Russia, and even by extension to that with China. And so the events that we're going to be seeing take place in the Middle East will have an effect here. And I want to mention something else too that was mentioned to me, and I referenced this last evening.
All right, and when you're done, we're going to go back to the
Okay,
phones.
just real quick, folks, understand this. Some of the weapons, that were taken to Syria taken to Turkey for ultimate distribution in Syria, ended up in. Some of those arms are being used against Israel, but also the chemical weapon. According to the best information we have, chemical weapons have been transported to South America, up into Mexico, for delivery and use inside the United States. So, there's a potential blowback for our actions. And I'm not saying they've got a right to do it, but I'm just explaining their mindset. Well, there's a potential there for blowback. Through the use of weapons against us here in this country. So imagine, the perfect storm between something like that taking place, the financial collapse, and the attack on the dollar. So all of this together is fixing for a perfect storm.
Yes, it is. We're going to go to the phone lines. Let's see, area code 317. We're coming to you first. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, Doug and Joe. It's Chad.
Hey, Chad. What's on your mind?
Hey. Just wanted to answer your question earlier. You guys were talking about your show. Do not change a thing. You change it to sound like everybody else, and you're going to be just like everybody else. You guys are unique. You do what you do, and that's why people love you. People don't want to, well, your audience does not want a rubber stamp.
Right. That's racist, Chad.
Frankly, I don't think we've got the capability of changing it because we are what we are. And, I think we've maxed out, but okay. No.
I love you guys. I just got a chance last night to go back and listen to your Sunday night program, and you were asked, Doug, you mentioned briefly earlier, I think, and I apologize if I don't get it worded exactly how you did. You were talking about the ammo and this being a solution for the economic collapse. Did I word that right?
Economic collapse.
Economic collapse. I didn't catch the first couple of words of that.
The weaponizing of the federal agencies as being a solution prepared in advance.
Oh yeah. Right. Yes.
Right. Well, this is. They can only plan for the reactions of the general populace. And going back to Steve Quayle and Pastor Langford were talking about Sunday night, and I mentioned this before, that the Antichrist spirit cannot deal with God. He cannot deal with the Holy Spirit, and so everything they do are designed and based for an expected reaction. And those who are in Christ, we do not react or should not react in the same way. I mean, when we're operating by faith, I think that is the true danger that they're worried about. I don't think they worry about anything we can do in the natural, in the flesh, as far as changing this or changing that. But what we can do by being woke up into the Spirit, that is what scares them. That's what makes them anxious and nervous, is because when we start walking in the authority of the Holy Spirit, we do not react according to the ways they intend us to react or expect. And the more people who walk in that, then their plans start suffering problems. But that's all I wanted to say.
Well, Chad, you hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah,
as they play off of our emotions, and those who are not grounded or have the foundation, the rock foundation of Jesus Christ, those emotions get played on, and we see the fears of the people and the worst come out of people when their emotions are attacked and poked and prodded in the way that they are. But when you are whole in your faith, as you said, you do not react in the same manner as the other people. And you're so right. They are more afraid of what we can do through faith in the spiritual realm than what that we can do here in the physical.
Yeah. And we got to remember, if Christ is no greater in a great act than he is in a little act of faith. Does that make sense? God is always God. He is always as great as he can be. So even the littlest act of faith is all the greatness of God behind it. And so even those little acts that we do throughout the day, that's why we can't be discouraged by what we say in our minds is, oh, this is just a little thing, or that thing that somebody else done is a great thing. It makes no difference. The greatness of God at operation in a little act of faith is just as potent as it is in anything else. And so if we see things from his point of view, we will learn to rejoice and walk in joy of that faith, even in the midst of our enemies. It confounds people who walk in the flesh that someone could rejoice in the midst of suffering, because that's the joy that God gives us in the midst of it. And we are so susceptible and can be overcome by those fears so easily, because we all have that flesh. We all have those fears that are so easily, Scripture says that so easily overcome us. But we're not to walk in that fear. We're to walk in that whatever faith that God has given us. The greatness of that little faith is just as potent as the greatest act of faith. And so just, be encouraged and walk in that, and we won't react the way they want us to. And if I can make them mad by walking in faith, I'm going to be smiling.
Thank you, Chad. Very wonderful call. And wow, I
God bless you too, Chad. Thanks for the call and the terrific insight.
Yeah, and I received this message once again from a very good friend of mine. We know how we were talking about the hardships that we are about to endure. Okay, and the gentleman that my friend wrote to me and said, and folks, think about this, and really think about this. The children of Jacob came to Egypt because of the famine in the land, and they traded their wealth for food from Pharaoh's storehouses. When they had no wealth left, they traded their lives, their freedom, for a home in Egypt, initially for security and safety and stuff, but they ended up as slaves. So, I mean, think about that. So, let me just say that again. The children of Jacob came to Egypt because of the famine in the land and traded their wealth, everything they had, for food from the pharaohs, from their storehouses. And when they had no wealth left, they traded their lives, their freedoms, their very freedom, their very lives for a home in Egypt, initially for the security and the safety. But they ended up, at the very end, they ended up as slaves. So that's why we have to really understand that, we are fighting a spiritual battle, and we must never, ever, ever, ever sell our birthright for a meal. We must never sell our security or sell our freedom for security, for the illusion of security. But we're doing that today. And it's growing and it's growing. But we must remember from biblical history, from that Bible passage, we must remember that, because I think it's so important. When you're hungry, are you going to succumb to the temptation to sell your birthright or to deny God?
Great question.
Man, because Americans have not seen hunger, really. The majority of Americans have not seen hunger before or experienced it. And so if you've got useless dollars out there, no food, and you get a hungry family and they're crying, I mean, the reality is, we're hungry, we're cold. Are you going to be tempted to sell your birthright? Are you going to be tempted to trade your wealth for food from the government?
Especially the food they're providing.
Toxic, or with conditions or with strings. Yeah. So this is what we have to mentally prepare for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So wow, it's one thing where people and programs can say, well, prepare, yes, this is what we've got to do, but
spiritual preparedness is the most essential of all.
Really heavy.
And it is the most non-talked about of all.
Yeah.
In the prepping world.
Absolutely.
And not only the spiritual, the mental preparations that we need to get ready for, which will come, the mental preparations come with the spiritual preparations, but also realizing the situations we might be in and knowing we have to rely solely on the voice of the Lord that is inside us all.
Yes.
Coming to that realization. Let's get another phone call in here before the show ends. Area code 703. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
You guys, I love your show. I'm a Christian also, and I'm here kind of near D.C. And so what you guys are what the Holy Spirit's obviously talking about is trying to make sure that we're as wise as serpents, but gentle as a dove, and the people are falling away because they lack the knowledge of the tempter, and so they'll accept the mark of the beast unknowingly as a result. And if you look, you're talking about Egypt and the symbols related to that, and you look on a dollar bill, you see an Egyptian pyramid, and the face of a president on it, who's painted on the inside of the Capitol dome as an apotheosis, a man become a god. And this is an evil Masonic deal, which is also related to even the time at hand, being 2012. They painted that Aztec 2012 calendar stone on there, and their little, allegory or alchemy of how they tie that all in with the Egyptian obelisk that's standing out there in a city that looks like the city of the dead in Egypt, and people will put this in a donation basket, and they can't quantify that with the fact that, hey, both of the parties in this country voted to get for a favored nation status for China, a country that is aborting God in the womb daily, and you're just not going to be able to escape that seal of contempt, which relates to the spirit of contempt, if you don't wise up to what's going on and what time it really is.
You said contempt, correct? Contempt, not content. Contempt.
Yeah, contempt. The spirit
right,
of contempt. I mean, what it is somebody who knows, like a fallen angel, who can be in legion and then tell Christ, hey, it's not the time. Well, these guys are all about mapping the time, and what time it is, and they're talking about the season of the Antichrist and the borderless global new world order and a system you can't buy, sell, or trade outside of. And they've got the image of a man as a god on a dollar with a pyramid on it, for goodness sakes.
Well, yeah.
And it's a federal debt note, and they put the word debt note to the word "in God we trust." And that God that they're talking about is painted inside the womb of ISIS or their Masonic temple in D.C. So it's right in front of everybody's face. But
the only thing caller, the other thing I don't agree with you on is I don't think that we're going to be tricked into taking the mark of the beast. I think that's got to be a conscious decision.
Well, I would disagree. I'd say that the time of sealing would be now, and that you've already got the fiscal reality of a global mark of the beast.
Well, okay, and that I agree with.
The only, and if you look at a dollar bill, there's the image that's described in the Bible is right there, and if you look at, say, for instance, who is going to seal the false peace with Israel and the nations that gets broken? Well, if you look at the past, that's obviously been the President of the United States, and you've got to look at the Federal Reserve System. It's a private global, system of contempt for labor.
Yeah, it's a cartel, right?
Return required to sustain the order. And here they're putting on new orders.
90 seconds.
In reality, it's death.
Well, I wish we had more time. We're at the end of our program, caller.
We should. I want to talk about this more maybe tomorrow if you get a chance to call back.
If you're listening tomorrow and you have the opportunity, give us a call back. We'll talk further on this. But I apologize. We're at the end of the program. folks are listening. You've listened 3 hours of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report tonight. We want to thank you so much for joining us, being part of our family.
60 seconds.
Thank you for your support. Thank you for your belief in us. Thank you for keeping us on and spreading the word. Tomorrow will be part 2 about the Benghazi, and with that and some other breaking news or some other news revelations that we've been working on that we'll disclose tomorrow as well.
Yeah, tomorrow's gonna be a heavy work day in the office, so
it will indeed.
Be a good show now.
And hopefully we can get some shooting time in though early. Yeah. All right, my friends.
You guys have a great night. God bless each and every one of you. Stay safe. We will see you tomorrow at the same time. Have a wonderful evening.
Good night.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Salvation belongs